Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, Damon.
Welcome to the May edition of the Washington State Building Code Council. If staff could please do a roll call.
Hey, Shell Anderson,
Present.
Jay Arnold,
Here.
Todd Byrather,
Yeah, are we muted?
There we go.
Okay.
I got you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Justin Borgo,
Here.
Damon Doyle,
Here,
Tom Handy,
Here.
Angela Hop. I believe she was going to be absent. Roger Haringa,
Here.
Matthew Hepner, Craig Holt,
Here.
Ty Mincer,
Here.
Ben O'Mara,
Here.
Pete Reiki,
Here.
Katie Sheehan. I saw her. There we go. Okay. And our ex officio members, Lauren Lathrop,
Good morning, I'm here.
Senator John Levick,
Good morning. I'm here.
Representative Alex Ramal, Representative Suzanne Schmidt, Senator Linda Wilson, and our Assistant Attorney General Derek Meyerbachdahl.
Morning, everybody. I'm here.
Thank you. And we do have a quorum.
thank you very much. Would any of the other participants like to raise your hand and introduce yourself? James?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, outstanding. James Knowles with Amerex, FEMA, and the National Association of Fire Equipment Distributors here for item number seven on the agenda.
Thank you, James. Dave?
Thank you.
Dave Cocott? Oh, he was there and then he's gone. Kendall?
Hi there, Kendall Liddicoat out of Metro Safety and Fire in Portland, Oregon, also representing the Oregon Fire Equipment Distributors and National Fire Association. I'm here to support item number 7.
Thank you. John Lang?
Yeah, good morning. John Lang from Wasia, the Solar Industry Group.
Thank you. Dave Cocott?
Dave Cocott, Spokane Fire Department.
Thanks, Dave. Guy Cutler?
Out of Portland, Oregon, and I'm also here for item number 7.
Thank you. Paige?
Paige with White Knight Fire Protection. I'm also here for item number 7.
Thank you. Joshua?
I'm Josh Garcia, Alexander Gale Fire Equipment, here to support Jamie Knowles in item number 7.
Thank you. Mike?
Mike Wiesinger with AAA Fire in Seattle, and I'm here to support item number 7.
Thank you. Nicholas? Nicholas, go ahead. Okay, Mary Krinbring?
Mary Krinbring with AAA Fire Protection, here to support item number 7, proposal number 2.
Thank you. Nicholas, did you want to introduce yourself? Okay, looks like we've got everybody there. Moving on to agenda item number 2 to review and approve the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Shell moved it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
With all those people here to discuss item number 7, would it be sensible to move item 7 up ahead of number 5 and make it the night, make it earlier in the process, so they don't have to wait through all of the executive session and things like that?
I would be in support of that. Anybody else find that to be a good idea?
I need to make.
Craig, you want to make that an amendment to the motion?
I would like to get the input of our lawyers first. I mean, we also have our legal team
Right, so,
scheduled.
I didn't think that this one was, really intended to be talked about by the lawyers today. But we could have the executive session and have a chat about it if we wanted.
Well, so I'm here. Morning, everybody. And it's obviously up to the council where it wants to schedule the executive session. We do have a few folks who are prepared to present, and I, as a courtesy, want to confirm with them whether they're available to do it. However long item number 7 takes. If they are, then we could move it.
Yeah, and this is just a courtesy to them, Derek. I didn't realize how heavy we were involved with the other things, but it's, if anybody's interested, I'll make a motion to amend the motion, but if it's too big of a deal, it's, it was a courtesy to them, and I didn't realize how much it impacted other things.
Derek, can you get an answer to that, whether or not the rest of the team is available?
I can, and one thing I've told everybody is we will work very hard to keep it to 30 minutes or less. So if that's a concern, that's one of our number 1 goals this morning too. But yeah, let me go check with folks and see.
Okay, Shell, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess since the agenda says, the first 30 minutes will be the executive session, I think that's adequate notice that, if you show up, the first 30 minutes will be an executive session. And I think that's fine. I think we should probably get to that executive session quickly, and we can probably get out of that in 30 minutes.
I'm fine. I withdraw the comment.
Okay. So we have a motion to accept the agenda. Any further comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, review and approve the minutes from last meeting. Is there a motion?
So
I
moved.
move.
Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on last week's minutes, which are also on the website? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item number 4, public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
Did you send that forward to them, what I sent you?
Yes, I did.
I sent to this Larry from Andrews Mechanical.
Hi, Larry.
Howdy. I sent forward a problem we have with the plumbing code and what's happening with some of these new combination boilers that needs to be addressed. Because we have a real potential for contamination of our drinking water with them. And the plumbing code's fairly clear for indirects, which basically these are, that there should be bold lettering put on these. And the question comes into order that should they even be allowed on existing piping systems, because the code, the way it is written now, it says that they have to be all potable water when you do this. And when you go to an existing system and you put one of these in, you don't know what was in that boiler system before. And it's traditional to use a lot of leak stop and other things, the chemicals that are put into the boilers, and all those are deadly poisonous. And so if you're putting one of these new combination boilers in on an old system, you have the potential of having a cross connection at some point. And the people will say, well, some of them are stainless steel flat plates that are in there, and some of them are brazed plates. But I don't know how many single wall heat exchangers that we've replaced in the last few years that have leaked. And it takes us numerous times to pinpoint where the leak is. And so you would have contamination happening during all that point to the drinking water. And we need to come up with a consensus of what needs to be done. And we ran into this here in the county just recently, and I have yet to hear back from the county yet. But it's dramatically important to protect the drinking water for the community. Thank you.
Larry, can you point to where that's at in the code? Can you reference the code reference?
I think I put that, gave that to you all that was supposed to be passed out. I think it's 504 or 505 in the plumbing code. It's indirect water heaters, single wall heat exchangers.
Larry, is that the 2021 Washington amendments or the 2024 model code coming in?
No, it's the 2021.
Thank you.
Because I don't.
That's adopted in.
That's been adopted. And so we hadn't seen these being used on existing systems until we were brought in to do some service work for the plumbing system, and we had to shut the system down, and we had noticed that a contractor had done that. And that's not a good thing. Okay. And it's kind of a hole in the plumbing code. I did call IAPMO about it, and IAPMO said they're in the process of getting like a tag together about the water heating chapter. But we need to do something so we don't have it happen. And this is like a time bomb sitting. Sure, when you first put it in, it's probably not a problem. But you get in there 5-6 years after the water's been ran through these things, then that's when you start having your leaks. And with a single wall heat exchanger in there, they would leak into the potable water side of things. And you could take a whole city block out, like has happened before with hepatitis. Hepatitis came into Spokane City one time, and one of the guys that was working on the main had hepatitis, and everybody on the block got hepatitis because he was infected. And so it can, you know, those germs and stuff can go all over the place. They're like fish. Thanks.
Dustin, did you send this out to the council by email?
I thought we had it attached to the page where we share stuff for everybody. I'm looking through it and I just have the email from Larry here. And he said that he wanted to speak on the subject. And I don't know if I actually got this one posted to the site for everybody to review.
Okay.
But I can post the email from Larry for everybody's digestion.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. Okay. Thank you, Larry. Moving on, Gavin.
Thank you, Council Chair. Gavin Tenold, also representing Washington Solar Energy Industries Association. I wanted to really briefly go on the record here regarding the issue of errata in the Washington State Energy Code and both residential and commercial. In particular, the Washington State Residential Code, though, for the R405 performance path. It's come to some of our attention that the insert pages documented on SBCC.wa.gov are incorrect and still containing the 2018 language, which is really unfortunate given that we're almost 2 months into this thing. The correct language is in fact on the WAC website. That website is app.ledge.wa.gov. So we've got the correct energy code on the WAC, but we are publishing the incorrect energy code in our insert pages. So I'm just here to hopefully implore council to use what I assume to be your directive over staff to try to encourage staff to hurry this particular errata along if possible. And happy to answer any questions, but I think I've kind of stated my concerns as clearly as I could. Thank you.
Can you, is there any particular section or, number that you can point us to that are incorrect?
It's the Washington State Residential Energy Code, the R405 performance path.
So the entire section.
In I think, Gavin, from an email you sent to Krista and I,
Yeah.
You're talking about the heating system baseline system in the errata is not what this council approved, but it is correct in the WAC. Is that true, Gavin?
Yeah, that is true. We've got some conflicting. We got the incorrect baseline in the performance path on the State Building Code Council's website, but the correct language is in the WAC.
And to get very specific here,
regarding the regarding
the baseline heating system that is correct says the baseline heating system is an air source heat pump, regardless of what system you use. That's the baseline, and then you can use any system you want, but that's the baseline. And that's what this code council approved in the CR 103 process. What the insert pages say is what the 2018 code said, which is use the same system type that is in the proposed case, meaning fossil if you're using fossil, or heat pump if you're using electric.
Yes, Jill, correct. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Thank you, Gavin. We will take this issue up. Is there any other public comment?
Can I just add to this? So just really quick before we move on. So I had kind of also been this has been on my radar as well, and just wondering, like, do we have any idea what the schedule is on when that gets fixed? Because my understanding, it's like, while it's there on the WAC, if it's in the insert pages where everybody's actually using it, we don't want to let people go for too long before they realize that it's incorrect. Do we know how long it'll take us then, or?
If we're just updating a quick section, I think we'll probably be able to turn it around pretty quick.
Okay.
I have to consult with Krista to see if she's already got this one kind of working.
Okay, cool.
So Krista, do you have any update on our insert pages for this one?
I haven't worked on those insert pages yet. I've been concentrating on getting the errata ready for the commercial code. That has been a little bit more involved and has been taking most of my time.
Thank you, Krista. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, we appreciate all your work, Krista, for sure. I didn't see any other hands up from the public. I did have a local building official that found an issue that he wanted to bring forward under public comment. And he called me just moments before the meeting, said he couldn't make the meeting. We have a conflict. If you go to chapter 5 in the plumbing code, 507.13, it addresses when you install a gas water heater in a garage that it must be 18 inches off the floor. That's so that any ignition source or pilot light or anything, it lessens the risk of it igniting gas fumes if it got a gas leak under the car, for example. That's been in the code for some time. At the same time, in our energy code, and I think this was an error, 403.5.6 says all tank tape water heaters in unconditioned spaces or on concrete floors in conditioned spaces shall be placed on an insulated surface with a minimum R value of 10. That's been typical for electric water heaters. I think that we're simply missing the word all electric tank type water heaters in R 403.5.6. So staff could make a note of that for the errata as well, to insert the word electric after all. We're not intending to put gas water heaters on the floor on a pad. So.
And that would be inserting it in the UPC section?
No, I think the UPC is correct. So UPC addresses all that in 507.13. The energy code residential 403.5.6 is missing the word electric when they address tank type water heaters. So gas water heaters need to obviously be on a stand. So I said I would bring that forward on his behalf. Okay, any further comment for items not on the agenda? Then we will go ahead and move on to item number, I'm sorry, I'm reading the last week's minutes. Item number five, which is executive session. It is 10:20. So I move we pause this meeting for 30 minutes until 10:50 and then go into executive session and come back.
Need for a little bit. I'll come and grab you when we're wrapped up on that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Larry.
You have to read something, right, Damon?
Yes, thank you, Chell. We are going to pause for executive session to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation to which the agency is or may be a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into executive session.
I'll get it going.
There we go. Okay, the regular council meeting is back in session. Can we do a quick roll call, please?
Yes, Shell Anderson.
He's still trying to find his way down the hallway here.
Like, okay, Jay Arnold.
Here.
Todd Byerther. There he is. Todd,
We should be on mute. Are you hearing us in the room?
I can hear you.
Todd's here.
Here.
Okay, there we go. Justin Borgo,
Here.
Eamon Doyle,
Here.
Tom Handy,
Here.
Roger Haringa,
Here.
Matthew Hepner, Craig Holt,
Here.
Ty Menser,
Here.
Ben O'Mara,
Here.
Pete Reiki,
Here.
Katie Sheehan. Here. And Shell Anderson.
I don't see him just yet.
Okay.
Do we have a
We
quorum
still-
nonetheless?
Yes, we
Okay.
do.
Okay, going back to agenda item number 6, or actually, excuse me, moving on to agenda item number 6. Do we need to form a little task force to kind of be on point for this recent litigation? Derek, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I'll just quickly, just for folks at home, the recent lawsuit that Damon's referring to is a case called Rivera versus Anderson, filed in the Western District of Washington on the 15th of this month. As is the custom of the council, where in previous cases, the council has assembled a small group, a committee to help interface with the lawyers defending the agency in the lawsuit. And I would request that the council do so here. As a reminder, a separate lawsuit, a case called the Northwest Regional Council versus SBCC lawsuit, which is now an OPMA case, does have a group tapped to help support the attorneys on. And that group consists of, see if I can get this right, it's Chell, Anderson, Ty Menser, Roger Haringa, and those are the current members of that group.
Yeah. Would it be your preference to have the same group or a different group?
I think it was the same group, but it would just be easier to manage. They are separate lawsuits with separate issues, but just managing time and resource, I think it would be easier. But if anybody wants to join in or prefers a separate group, I would leave it up to you all.
Okay, Roger?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we form a committee to interface with the attorneys on this new case, and that committee would include the same 3 council members and also add the acting director, Dustin. And so that's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
And if I may speak to the motion, I you know, the group that is, the attorneys are they're great attorneys. The group that we have is a good group. I don't want to eliminate anybody. If there's any other council members that would like to be a part of it, I just wanted to get the process going. I think the group that we have works well. So I'm open to other comments or folks that would be interested, but that's I think it would be, I think the council would be well served for us to continue with the same group.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to keep the same group. Tom, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, you know, if there was a desire to add another member, I'd be happy to throw my name in the hat, but you know, it's up to the rest of the group.
I would take that as a friendly amendment if you would like to volunteer, Tom.
I think that'd be great. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none.
Need a second from Jay.
Go ahead.
Need a second from Jay or no on the friendly amendment?
I'm fine with that. Okay, yeah, thank you, Todd. Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to item number 7, request for emergency rule. Dustin, do you want to give us a recap of where we're at on this?
Yeah, so at the last month's council meeting, we were directed to take this topic back down to the tag to discuss. We had some discussion at the first tag meeting there, and we broke out an ad hoc little committee to discuss further with the proponent. What came out of that after we came back to the tag is to propose to the council for emergency rule, the adoption of proposal number 2, which in the last council meeting, that one will just extend the effective date for the NICET licensing for the pre-engineered systems. Instead of altering the language, we're just gonna push out that date similar to what we had on the books already, but those dates didn't shift with the delays of the code as well. So once the code became effective, folks didn't have very much time to shift their licensing to the NICET licensing. And the big point of contention as far as why the NICET licensing is preferred over the NAFED licensing is that there's an experiential requirement for that licensing, and the folks who have input on that feel that the experience is a valuable aspect of the licensing for the state of Washington.
Okay. Thank you. Roger?
Yeah, I was on the IFC tag when the conversation occurred. There was very, very strong support for the licensing. As Justin said, it purely was should it be certification or renewed certification. So I believe if I'm correct, that you certify every 3 years. So theoretically, that would be a 3-year wait time for the certification if we insert the word renewed certification. There were, at the tag level, there were supporters of both of those, and that's why the tag recommended that we go ahead and delay option 2, which delays the implementation to January rather than June, since we are up against the time frame. That would allow us, 6 months for us to then figure out for sure whether the certification or renewed certification is the right language to move forward.
Okay. Do you, so that we have something to discuss, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
I am completely ready to make a motion that we accept proposal number 2, which I don't have up in front of me right now, sorry. Proposal, do you have that, Damon, that you can?
There we go.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we accept proposal number 2, which is to delay the implementation to January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, I need to step away for a moment. Todd, would you, as vice chair, take over for a moment here and facilitate the discussion on this motion?
Sure, thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Do you want to speak more to that, Roger? Or Shel?
I don't need to speak more.
I have a so there was a CR 103 draft that went out. Was that for the option 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the motion is basically to accept the CR 103 was on the council website. That's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we have the proponent, James Knowles, with his hand up or he did have it up for maybe public comment on this one.
Okay, and do we have public comment listed here also, right?
Yes.
Okay, Jade, why don't you ask your question first and then we'll go into public comment.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Jade first, I'm sorry, and then James.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go right ahead. I just would say simply, we worked with the work group, we worked with the TAG, and came to an agreement that that extending this to January gives us a time to discuss a reasonable work requirement, and we are fully in support of number 2 and that discussion with the TAG. So we support this vote and the second. So I'll just be quiet and let you vote. But thank you very much for your time.
And thank you, James, for all your education on this and your effort. Okay, now Jay Arnott.
Great, thank you. And just wondering, Roger or staff, if there is a definitive timeframe for further work on this, because it sounds like what we're doing with this emergency rule is going through the 1st of January 2025, and wondering when there'll be opportunities for further tag work and when this might come back to us.
So at the moment, the only directive we have is to do the emergency rule on that. The plan after the emergency rule to make sure that this lasts until January 1st was to complete an expedited rulemaking to make the effect permanent. If we wanted to direct to do off-cycle rulemaking for the 2021 code, that would be something we would need to embark on as well, but we don't have a time frame for that established yet.
Jay, if I may, as the alternate head of the IFC tag, waiting for the position on the code council to be filled. Right now the IFC tag is very, very busy trying to get through our first pass at the code changes. My assumption, and that is an assumption on my part, I think I would love to have the council direct us, is after that first pass through the code changes so that we can get the process moving on the new code, we would go back and reformalize maybe that same working group and have a discussion about the timeline so that we can take action this summer or fall prior to January 2025. I hope that answers your question.
It sounds like, though, we don't need to include that in any direction today. We can follow up with that based on the tag work, the tag schedule, and balancing the current 2024 work with this.
Yeah, I will make sure that I keep that on the agenda for the tag, and I am sure the proponents will make sure that we're moving forward as well.
Okay, so the council is currently debating the motion at hand, which is proposal number 2, but we're mixing in our public comment, make sure we've heard from everyone. We've heard from the proponent. The public comment isn't limited just proposal number 2. So does anyone else like to speak to this? Otherwise, we'll recognize Benjamin on the council. I can't see the hand, so if you're raising your hand in the public, Dustin will let me know, please. Thanks. Go ahead, Benjamin.
Thanks, Todd. I just wanted to clarify if maybe this has been discussed in the tag already, but since the implementation would be delayed to be effective in January, what would be the standing rule at the moment if this does go into effect for these alternative systems requirements?
Currently on our books, we have the 2018 requirement. So the current licensing requirement is to have a NAFED licensing to do work on the pre-engineered systems. The way the code was drafted in the 2021 editions is we have the sections you see on screen here with the effective date of January or of June 1 this year. And then we also have a duplicate section in there that contains the 2018 language that says NAFED licensing. So this is an additional section in here in our WAC currently, and in the published code, we have duplicative sections. So it's a little bit cumbersome for the eye on there, but in order to have this clear for everybody, we when drafting this for publication, this is the only way we really saw to do that without having to do more rulemaking outside of that cycle. And so currently we have 2018 stuff on the books. It'll continue to be 2018 requirements through until January 1 if we adopt this courtesy rule.
Got it. Understood. Thanks. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other public comments, let's prepare to vote. Roger, could you please restate your motion?
Yeah, I would, my motion is that we approve option number 2, which is presented in the CR 103 language that was submitted and is on the website.
Okay. Let's take a roll call, I suppose, right?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Shel Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Arnold,
Yes.
Todd Bayerther,
Aye.
Justin Borgo,
Aye.
Tom Handy,
Aye.
Roger Haringa,
Aye.
Craig Holt,
Yes.
Ty Menser,
Yes.
Ben O'Mara,
Yes.
Pete Reiki,
Yes.
and Katie Sheehan. I didn't hear Katie.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, that's unanimous.
Okay, that passes. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, proponent. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 8, one I'm very curious about, DNR Tsunami Web Tool disabled. Dustin or someone else going to lead us on this?
So I put on the website the little presentation that DNR was planning to present today. I'm looking for hands from DNR folks in the guest room, and I will give them permission to talk and to present. So we got Daniel Jungard from DNR. I'm going to promote you to a panelist. This will allow you to share your screen, or I can drive the presentation for you if you like. Okay, he's coming over to be a panelist now.
Yes, I'm online now. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my share and you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Give me a minute here while I get that spooled up. Apologies, I'm not as familiar with Zoom. There we are. And share. That should, hopefully you all are seeing my screen now.
Yes, let me get this up for the folks in the room here.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, and I'm coming through. Audio's okay?
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, I would like to thank all of you for allowing me time to present to your meeting here regarding the Tsunami Design Zone Map and Geodatabase. So in this presentation, I'm going to briefly cover the history of the tsunami codes in Washington, since they are relatively new, and I'm not sure how familiar everyone in this group are with them. There's some issues that have been identified with the implementation tools since they were released. These tools were used to support the code, and so since the code's release in March, some practitioners have come forward with some questions and identified some issues with them. I'm going to cover what actions we've taken so far to address the issues, our proposed timelines to complete the updates needed and relaunch the implementation tools. So for the tsunami building codes in Washington, following the adoption of codes in the 2018 cycle, the DNR presented to the SBCC issues with the tsunami loads chapter, notably that the modeling used by ASCE was of lower resolution relative to the modeling provided by DNR, and that the sources utilized were not consistent with Cascadia science. They were not provided upon request or peer-reviewed. The SBCC established a tag to address the issues, which ultimately led to code amendments, which adopted DNR's high-resolution model publications into code. ASCE 722 was released in 2021, providing updates to engineering and design calculations, but no change to the tsunami mapping. Via change proposal, the SBCC adopted 722 with amendments to include additional high-resolution tsunami model publications, providing statewide coverage. The DNR released a new 2021 WA Tsunami Design Zone geodatabase and online map tool, combining the published data and the ASCE's offshore points for as a implementation tool for practitioners. This is an example of what the 2021 WA TDZ map tool looks like, which is displaying this geodatabase data. So we have the offshore amplitude points in the blue dots that are off the coast there, and all the published mapping is shown in the yellow overlay over the land. Now, a practitioner can zoom into an area or project of interest and utilize this tool to query the data and find information such as inundation elevation and current velocity values for their sites of interest. This basically gives them a way to directly interface with the geodatabase data without necessarily having GIS requirements of their own. Now, for the value of inundation elevation, this represents the combined elevation value of the tsunami wave and ground deformation or subsidence referenced to the mean high water datum. And in this image we're showing here, it's kind of a pictorial representation of that, where you have your ground deformation in dark blue and your tsunami, basically the wave contribution in light blue. Add those two together and that gives you your maximum elevation. However, after consulting with practitioners who were starting to use the code, it was recognized that the value of ground deformation, that is the dark blue color shown in that image, was not presently included in the elevation data values within the geodatabase or online tool. The source data and published maps, however, are accurate and are still usable by practitioners. So since recognizing the issue with the elevation data, we've taken down the WA TDZ geodatabase and online tool and put them offline. This is noted in the WA TDZ webpage as shown in the red text in the upper right. Also, we've added a data link column as shown in the image in the lower right to give the practitioners a direct link to the source data for them to use. This data was available elsewhere on the DNR website, but we've added it here to the webpage for their convenience. Additionally, while we were discussing the issues with the practitioners who were using the site and implementation tool, it was identified that since the code references a number of variables, including inundation elevation, inundation depth, ground deformation, it would be most convenient to them to have all these variables available and displayed within the same program or online tool. While these values could be calculated or derived from other publications, it would be an enhancement for their ease of use. As shown on the right image, basically what this would look like would be additional tabs that they could flip through, and for their site that they've queried, it would return additional values of inundation elevation, inundation depth, and subsidence, so that they could see each of those values individually and not have to rely on any calculations to derive them. So our plan is to correct the misreported inundation elevation values, add additional data sets for land level change and inundation depth to the WA TDZ online tool and geodatabase, update the metadata on all data sets to indicate this change and effective date of change, update update the online tool and web page text indicating this change and effective date of change. Our timeline for making these changes and relaunching the TDZ tool and geodatabase is as follows. We anticipate roughly 2 to 3 weeks on database updates and developments, 2 to 3 weeks of testing the online tool once we push the new data to the tool, making sure the tool is working the way we would like and is stable. We would also like to have a 1-week review period from the former TAG members who were involved with making the amendments to the Tsunami Building Code in the first place. We feel that their review would be extremely helpful to make sure that it is exactly as the practitioners would want it to work. 1 to 2 days following that review period to prep the website and coordinate a relaunch of the TDZ. All told, we anticipate that this relaunch process will probably happen in July. And with that, that is what I have to present to you today. I again thank you for your time, and I am happy to take any questions you may have.
Damon, looks like you're back, so I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Make sure I didn't double click my mute button there. Okay, is there any questions from council members? Roger?
Oh.
Yeah, I guess what I understand from your presentation is that the users, there is a method for users to continue with the design currently.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess I'm curious so it doesn't sound to me like there is necessarily any action that we have to take, and I guess that's a question for Daniel and or anybody else on the council. I would like that question answered. Just, all right, what action do we need to take today? So thank you.
Daniel, you want to respond to that?
I can as best as I am able. From my understanding or perspective, this is a notification for the council for their awareness of these changes. I am not entirely certain. I do not believe that this requires any code changes whatsoever, and this is more of just a courtesy announcement for the council. But I am certainly open to any other suggestion or opinion on that.
Okay, and before I recognize Katie, Dustin, do you have anything to add?
As far as what we got going on, I want to let the council know we have this on our news bulletin on the webpage. We have the presentation here that we gave today also in that news bulletin. And I believe that there are folks at DNR available to assist the end code users as well if they reach out to them to help. And so I kind of heard the ask from Daniel that we reconvene some folks who were involved in the tsunami stuff in the previous code cycle. And so since our tags are kind of changed, I think we might need to convene a special group to maybe interact with this topic for a little bit of review. And so that would be my ask, is some direction on that. And I think that having it back up in July would be good. And if we could have some review from those folks who had input in the beginning, or at least a modified group with what we got going on now would be appropriate.
Okay. Katie?
Yeah, I mean, my comment is on the notification. I happened to look at it last night and saw it and went around to the links that we have in the DNR tsunami tools disabled. And it would be great to send them directly to, because the 2 links that we have on there, one is the presentation that we just saw, and then the other one, it takes you to an error code. So
okay, I think that's just the site that is actually down at the moment, is that link right there.
Right, so if we could get that to go to wherever it goes so that they can still use the tool.
Okay.
Like what I believe Daniel said we could do, that would be maybe, or wherever they need to go so that they have that information until July.
Daniel, you think you could forward me that link and I can get this all put together on our news bulletin?
Yes, absolutely. The WATDZ website is still online, and so I will forward you the link to that website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jill?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess reconvening the tag, finding some people to do that. And Todd, was that you leading the tag?
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. So the tsunami tag was an ad hoc tag of subject matter experts, and thank you, Daniel and all. It was an outstanding example of bringing in SMEs for this kind of task. And then in the end, then technically it goes through the IBC tag because we put it in chapter 16 as a Washington amendment. So that also could be an appropriate way to invite the subject matter experts to an IBC tag, have a brief session and so forth, if we feel it's needed. The last thing, and Michelle maybe had a follow on there, but I was just gonna say, if I remember correctly, the way we collectively wrote this was, and I'm skimming chapter 16 again, we referenced the DNR website, and I don't believe we ever put that the tool was the method. I think the code technically says the maps are. So maybe someone else can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any null and void violation here and within the sections or chapter 16. We're not in a situation like we are in with the WUI tag where it's null until we get the maps.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is my understanding that we, during the tag process, tried to be very clear that the publications that DNR has released, those are what the practitioners should be using in terms of, the design process, and that this online implementation tool was an implementation tool made for ease of use through their exploratory process in starting their designs.
Yeah, I guess my bigger question was, okay, the timeline for reconvening the tag, I guess that's something we could discuss in a minute. I was wondering more how this change is going to be communicated to building officials and to people preparing applications that this would be subject to. Is it so obvious that that if I look at the code, I will go to all the right places, or do we need some sort of a communication to, through GovDelivery or through whatever, through building officials, through WABO or other things that that this has taken place?
Michelle, if I might jump in, this is Todd again. I don't think there is correction. The direction, the website is hard written into the amendment. So that is still correct, and that references the maps that are correct. This tool is more of the thing that's offline. And in my experience, the practitioners that use this are very knowledgeable and skilled. In fact, it sounds like they're the ones that caught it, right?
That's my understanding.
Okay, good.
Is that what you're asking, Shell? Are we at risk?
Yeah, like when something changes and it's referenced in the codes, how do people know that something changed? Because people don't necessarily rewatch all of our meetings. I just want to make sure that practitioners and code officials that it's painfully obvious what the right thing to use is as far as a tool and as far as implementation of the code. And it sounds like that's the case.
Yeah, Shell, the website, the DNR website is the thing that's referenced in the code. So as long as the website is updated, which it sounds it is.
Yes, our intent is to put a very prominent message in the website to note the change in effective date of change, and then have that same language used on the application, the online tool itself, and then it'll also be in the metadata for the data download package as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. So do we need any action today?
I don't think so. I think this was all mainly informational for everybody. In purpose, I'm looking at the code online here, and it does reference the website dnr.wa.gov/wa-tdz, and that is the website with a broken link right now. So if we were to navigate to that, it's got a 404 error in there. So getting a link to the correct page, at least in the news, for folks to use would be appropriate.
Dustin, I used the link off of our site, and I'm on that website right now, dnr.wa.gov/wa.tdz.
wa.tdz?
Or excuse me, wa-tdz, I'm sorry.
So for some reason on my side, I'm getting a broken link over here.
Oh, wait. But it's on the natural resources site.
So I'll coordinate with Daniel and make sure we get the correct links up in our news bulletin. And maybe we can consider some other publications, but it should be back up and running in July, anticipated. So as long as we have that resource for folks, I think we should be all right.
Okay. Jill, do you have a comment?
Yeah, did we need to do anything today about convening a tag for the request? Or putting together a tag?
Were you thinking, Todd, to just kind of bring it to the IBC tag?
If it's requested, I'm still kind of not sure if that's needed. If we've had this public meeting here, because if I understand correctly, all the frozen maps that are referenced in chapter 16 are still accurate, correct?
Correct.
But it doesn't sound to me like was it a request to have an IBC, a special tag?
The tag that worked on it, he wanted a week's of testing.
Oh, I see, okay. Fair enough, yeah, we can have a special meeting at IBC if you'd like, or create that ad hoc, but we should identify that ad hoc, who that ad hoc is in this meeting then. Unless you want to defer to the tag, the IBC tag.
I think we're fine. Okay, anything else on this topic? Daniel, thank you. That was a good presentation and we appreciate your help.
Well, thank you very much. And again, thank you for all your time.
Okay. Okay. Boy, Todd, I step away for 10 minutes and you just motor through the agenda. I'm impressed. Let's move on to item number 9. Somebody bet me that I couldn't get done by noon. Now I'm feeling like I should have taken that bet. Item number 9, petition for rulemaking, an update to pronouns in the WAC. Dustin, can you give us an overview?
Yeah, so we received a petition from an individual to change the pronouns in our WAC. Some background on this one is that this same petition was received by many other state agencies. And late last week, there was a meeting to discuss what the response from everybody's going to be. And the general response from folks is that they are going to grant the petition and embark on some rulemaking. They're doing it in a variety of different ways. Some folks are going to hold off until they have current rulemaking completed so that they don't have to go back and refile stuff. My recommendation on this one is to say, yes, we can do the work, but to roll it into our 2024 adoption cycle. And that way we respond to it, that we are willing to do it, but we want to not make it the priority right this second.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Any comment? Todd?
My screen petition.
Yeah, we see your screen.
And so the person who provided the petition has done a lot of work and gone through our WAC for us and identified the places where these changes might need to be made. So I think it should be a fairly easy lift to roll this into our 2024 cycle.
Yeah, surprisingly, it's only 7 pages, so that's cool. Todd, go ahead.
So are these WACs only our rulemaking related to code development, or we must also have rules for our process and so forth that we could address immediately? That's not part of a 3-year cycle.
So they only requested it within the WAC, so we could potentially go back and look at our bylaws and some other things. And they didn't mention code language specifically, so it would just be the WACs. And then if we go forward with the adoption by reference that Stoyan initiated, we can, we may have some reduction in the amount of sections that we have to actually make changes to.
I guess my question is, are these WACs that are on the screen right now only related to our Washington amendments to the code, or there are other rules and procedures and so forth that fall under rulemaking?
It's just WAC 51, and looks like they've touched on 04, 05, 06, 16, 52, 55, and 56. They're saying there are no changes found in there. And then, so just it looks like the initial sections, I guess they got 104.1 in our commercial energy code. I guess it looks like they've got some actual code language in here, and they haven't addressed like the initial sections like 001 through 009 in our different WACs there. So
Justin, do you mind if I jump in for a second?
not at all.
Yeah, so just to echo what Dustin was saying, the petitioner here has actually done a really, me talking, really a pretty fantastic service to the state by carefully reviewing all the WACs, not just for the State Building Code Council, but for many other state agencies to identify gendered language and highlighting that and requesting that that language be changed and made some specific recommendations on how the language could be changed. From my review, it's amazing with all the WACs that we have that there isn't a ton of this in our rules, but they appear to be in the actual code provisions, the code provisions that would be subject to rulemaking in the upcoming cycle. So to answer your question, Todd, it doesn't appear that there's any his or her or other language pronouns that's used in our general, WACs governing our procedures and the like.
Thank you.
Okay. Jay, you had a comment?
Yes, first I'd support Dustin's recommendation to say, let's accept the petition and roll this into our upcoming updates to clean up the code at that point. My question is that while we're accepting the petition to change to more inclusive language, given that this is impacting administrative code across several agencies, is there any discussion of what are the standards to update the language to? And making sure that we get that information to the tag so that can be part of their process.
So at the meeting where we gathered all the different state agencies together, there is some sharing of documents of how folks are approaching it and what they're actually doing. But there haven't been any guidelines set down as like, this is how we should be doing this, and this is the changes we should be moving towards. And so I guess it is my understanding that this person has done this work for all the state agencies when they've submitted their petition. Everybody got a copy of their WAC with highlighted language, and some people are still expecting this petition, and some have already been embarking on the work without the petition coming down. And they're, so we don't have any hard, fast rules on what we should be changing and how we should be changing it.
Are there any resources within the state to help with this? Within my own jurisdiction, we have a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging manager that would help provide us with some policy guidance. Wondering what resources there are for the SBCC to draw on for this.
As far as resources right this second, I don't have any that I'm aware of off the top of my head, but I'm sure that they're out there. And so I could identify them and make them available to folks.
Yeah, and Dustin, do you mind if I jump in for a second too? Because Dustin's had some I've had some conversations too with it. So this is getting a lot of attention right at the sort of the agency level because, there are a lot of agencies who have received this petition. And as we know from previous petitions, agencies have a responsibility under the APA to respond to petitions. I'm going to say something about that too. But as far as guidance or specific norms or requirements, I'm not aware of anything in writing. But keep in mind, the legislature actually has a similar requirement, and the requirement's been on the books since the 80s to use gender neutral language in writing statutes. And my understanding is, though I don't believe that this has been reduced to writing, it's kind of more of a rule of thumb, is that the code revisor's office, who's responsible ultimately for publishing the bills and we work with on WACs, try to avoid any pronouns at all in writing and just use the nouns. As a lawyer, that's my preference too, mostly just for clarity's sake. If we use a pronoun, there can sometimes be some uncertainty about who we're referring to, right? And so just from a drafting perspective, I think it's often better to be very precise using the noun, unless, you know, there's a reason to not do that. Sometimes there's a reason not to do it. And so I think that that's what I've heard from other agencies and lawyers, is that appears to be the approach that they're taking. So for example here, if we're looking at 5111C 10500, you'll see the first highlighted in pink. It says construction or work for which a permit is required shall be subject to inspection by the code official. And then it says his or her designated agent. You can simply replace that with the code official's designated agent, right? And that's a pretty simple solution. And again, provides that clarity about who that pronoun would be referring to.
That's Shell.
I agree with comments stated earlier. Isn't this kind of editorial or clerical? I mean, it's synonymous. We're taking one word and replacing it with or three words and replacing it with a word that means entirely the same thing as intended to mean the same thing. It seems like the cleanup would be reasonably easy and wouldn't require, you know, a huge rulemaking process. Is that generally correct?
That's my
think
view of the.
Yeah, it nonetheless, it is still work. And our plate is quite full, so.
Yeah, it just seems to me like this is, you know, like if we embark on a whole CR 101, 102, and 103 for each of these, that's just a lot of work that, I mean, seems to me to be entirely like a logical change that has no intended effect on the implementation of the code.
Joe, my view is that this could be done through expedited rulemaking, and I think that that's what the petitioner had in mind.
Yeah, some agencies are doing the expedited rulemaking, and some are trying to wrap it into their existing processes. And so that's kind of where I got the idea to just roll it into our 2024 adoption in our CR 102 documents, just to indicate them as editorial changes with no regulatory effect.
Yeah. If we do that, what action would we take today?
We would accept the petition, and then staff would prepare a letter of response.
Well, actually, sorry, excuse me. You caught me. I put something in my mouth. You asked the one question I wanted to answer just when I put something in my mouth. I'll never make that mistake again, Chell. Sorry. And I'm sorry, Dustin, you and I haven't had a conversation about this before, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. But under the APA, there's really two paths forward. One would be to deny the petition, but explain what alternative path would be taking. And I think that that's what Dustin is recommending here. The other would be to accept the petition and initiate rulemaking. So if we were to accept the petition, that would be, you would move forward with doing rulemaking and not roll it up in your, so technically you would be denying the petition if you were to roll it up in your ongoing rulemaking. But with, you know, I've seen other agencies, they say we're denying your petition, but we are going to address this when we update our rules on XYZ date.
That sounds reasonable to me. I also had on the page 3, the change is not, it's from his or her to his or her. So it would probably be from his or her to there. Just wanted to note that.
Katie?
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest the degendering completely. His or her is great, but maybe there is just straight across the board, because his or her doesn't actually include everybody still. So maybe there is the best.
I think that is exactly what
that's what they're
suggesting.
saying. Okay.
But then what Dirk was saying was, instead of using pronouns at all, use nouns.
Or designated agent. Yeah. So so great. And then the other piece is that there is the Washington State LGBTQ Commission. And maybe the statement, if we're going to deny them, we can put something up on our website that just is there, like we're committed to inclusion or something that is but in order to preserve state resources, we're going to update these things in the 2024 code. Or something, whatever, but to make that statement public so that it's out there, so it's out there.
Okay. I think that if we decided to deny the petition and embark on the wrapping this into our cycle work, that that petition response letter would kind of be served that, but we could put this on the website as well as a new bulletin.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I was, before Derek said it, I was kind of going that same direction where we just use the nouns. You know, it seems like over the past 3 or 4 years, you know, pronouns is a moving target. And if every time somebody has a new one that kind of catches on, so to speak, and becomes them, you know, they're gonna need that same inclusion. And we could be chasing this for quite some time. So, you know, my recommendation, and I'd put forth a motion that we, you know, we deny this petition and use only nouns where appropriate to do so.
Okay. Tom's suggested a motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. So the motion is to deny the petition, use nouns wherever possible. And you want to also say that we're going to include this in our next cycle?
Yeah, the process would be to clean it up as we go forward and make sure that we pay attention to it and that we do take it seriously in what they're saying. So.
Okay, perfect. Todd?
Yeah, thank you. I'm in full support of that, especially with our understanding that it's only our amendments. But then that raises the question of going further. If our role by statute is to adopt and amend the model codes, then shouldn't we be scrubbing the model codes and ensuring that they also don't have that they follow the same rules? And I know that could be a big task, but it doesn't matter, right? That we should, in our process, we should be amending those model codes coming in. We're in that process right now. So especially this time around, as we are actually we are writing, or we are amending model code, which is different than just statute before, or just WAC before.
I think Dustin touched on that, where if we can move to where we're referencing the model codes, we're doing it by reference, then we're simply referencing a document, and that document's out of our hands.
Well, is that always true? I mean, we are actually amending the model codes before we adopt them. So we're going through line by line punctuation, everything right now, numbering, which is a little different than we've done it before. So in my mind, those changes need to show up.
I think so. You know, I'm not sure how much needs to be changed in the model code. I haven't done the search through there to see if the terms are there.
I don't know either.
But I would hope that there's not a whole lot in the code text.
I'd be in support of doing that, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Pete?
Yeah, I'm unclear on the accept option and what that entails. I think I understand what we mean by the motion to deny and write the letter of explanation / response. But what does accept detail here? Clarify that for me.
Is that directed to me regarding the APA requirement?
I guess, yeah. I kind of zoned out at that point. So
No. That's or just say you were eating like I was, and then wrong. Yeah. So we've been done this. This is the same type of APA petition that we've dealt with in a few other instances, where, in fact, I think most recently, Council agreed to make changes to initiate rulemaking in response to the petition for rulemaking. And what it means to accept the petition would be, hey, you're right, we're going to initiate rulemaking and file CR 101 to start the process, or here be expedited rulemaking. So it'll be a CR 104 or 105, sorry. And so that would be that option. So really under the APA, you have the two options to deny, but with a caveat, but we're gonna make this change going forward in our ordinary rulemaking cycle. Or alternatively, you could say, no, we're gonna make the change now. And that's what it would be to accept the petition.
Is the petitioner amenable to that, or is this setting ourselves up for a fight?
I don't have a lot of on what they are,
Oh.
so with the responses from other agencies, we don't know if they are, happy with those responses. I'm sure if we did expedited rulemaking, that'd be most preferential. But some of the other agencies are kind of doing what we're talking about and denying and doing it in a different process.
Yeah, I'm not aware, Pete. Again, I've been interfacing with other agencies, council. I don't believe we've gotten any insight as to whether the petitioner's supportive one way or another with kind of immediately attacking this or committing to attacking it down the road. I will say, though, this is a petition. This is not, this is a request from a member of the public, and which folks are entitled to do to public agencies under the APA. It does not set the agency up potentially for litigation or anything along those lines if the agency goes in a different direction. That's not to say it's not important, but ultimately the policy decision is up to the council.
I certainly think that if we deny and write a letter of explanation / response, then making sure that our public interface guarantees that we're going to hold ourselves to our word. So I think I agree with Katie's comments there. So thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a motion on the table to deny the petition, however, incorporate their suggestions into our next standard rulemaking process, and to use formal nouns where possible to avoid confusion. Does that sum it up pretty good, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, tag seats for the 2024 code adoption cycle. First thing is we've gotten some additional tag member appointments for some of our vacant positions, and then as well as a couple others that may or may not have been vacant. Dustin, take it away.
All right, so I guess I've got it color coded here for everybody. The top section is for our IBC tag, the red sections for the IFC tag, the purple-ish colors for our MVP, and then we have one candidate for our energy code tag. They didn't say they wanted to be part of the commercial or residential, but those sections are is filled for what they have there. So I'd like to, I guess, start in the IBC tag, and we can go down the list from the top and kind of touch on the seats that they're wanting to occupy. So first up would be for fire services representatives. That tag seat is currently vacant, and we have 3 folks on this list who are applying for that position, and 2 of them have come with some letters of recommendation from the fire marshals, and they have a preference on primary and secondary. And then the third person has a letter of recommendation from the city of Linwood. And so we've disseminated these out to the tag chairs, and I would ask for Todd to maybe have a recommendation on these seats.
Are you able to put up our list of?
I can, so.
Maybe not on the fly.
I have a bunch of contact information on there, and I didn't
That's
necessarily
okay.
put that one up.
That's okay. So just to remind everybody which seats are open though.
Okay, yeah, so I can verbalize that. So in the building code tag, we have fire services representative vacant. We have affordable housing representative vacant. We have the manufacturer supplier vacant. We have a persons with disability or an accessibility expert vacant. We have the building owner property manager vacant, and a specialty contractor vacant. So we have quite a few seats open on this tag.
Okay, so I'll just quickly state, and give my opinion. I reviewed this thoroughly with some of the other subject matter experts, and open for discussion on this. Make a recommendation for Brett Conway for the building owner, property manager. He's been serving at these meetings and very interactive. Make a recommendation for Lance Dahl for the fire service representative, and then make a recommendation for Michael Shaw as the accessibility expert. From there, I'd like a little clarification or discussion from the council then on the, if we have open roles, then on how we would want to fill those. But I'll start with those. Did I give 3 or 4
You
recommendations?
gave 3, and so did you want Lance Dahl as the primary? So he came with a recommendation as the secondary, and he is primary on the fire tag in that position.
Oh, I'm sorry if you're right. I remember that. Okay. I might need a little help remembering, and Roger, if you can help me a little bit on that. I do recall that discussion now.
Give me 1 second. I will get the tag seats here. I'm just gonna scrub the contact information from real quick.
And for that matter,
there's a link on the our main page that has tag vacancies, and it just has names and position.
and I'm happy to be on the spot here, but I also would value all input and open it to the chair on whether or not you want to take public comments on this too, while we're trying to make these decisions.
Yeah, and I think, yes, this is open for public comments. I don't see any hands up at the moment. Oh, there goes one. Dave, go ahead. Dave looks like, oh, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, unmute can work right away. Yes, as representing the Washington State Association of Fire Marshals, we had a discussion with our group. And Lance would be good to be the alternate for this position because it would allow us to have representation between a person that's on both of the fire tag and building tag. And Dan Young is very interested in being the lead for the building tag. So we would like to see him in that position as the primary and Lance as the secondary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I do recall that discussion, so I'll change that recommendation to as stated.
You want to try to update your spreadsheet as we go here, Dustin?
So I've got some stuff going on in here. So with Lance, we got prime for fire services, and Dan is secondary for fire services. Okay. And then
No, is that correct?
That should be reversed. Dan Young
I
should
think
be
it's the other way around.
primary and the prime, that's the secondary would be Lance.
Thank you.
One of those blues.
yeah, well, I'm just gonna leave it. It's not critical.
Yep.
So, and then we didn't have quorum at our committee last Friday to move this forward. And so that's why we're bringing all these to the council meeting here today. So do we want to make a decision on the fire service representative here, and we'll insert these folks into the prime and secondary position on that one?
Yeah, I think for expediency, it looks like Todd had named several, and I think we could vote on them as a blanket.
Okay. I'll just get it filled in. So this is our council recommendation at the moment, and we'll all right, so.
And so if I remember correctly, then we're still missing affordable housing representative, right?
Yes. So if I go back into what we got here, so we will have that one taken care of. Affordable housing representative, We don't have anybody who volunteered for that position in this group.
And we're missing the manufacturer supplier, and I guess my recommendation would be to hold those and still look for those subject matter experts rather than bringing in general.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
And then we
You
had
had-
a,
Yeah, go ahead. I think that was a recommendation from Todd as well.
Correct.
And then also, was it also Brett Conway?
Correct.
I don't know why I have the same fire service representative in here, copy and paste and stuff too much. Okay. All right.
Okay, so that looks like 4 positions, is that correct?
Yes, and then as far as, we don't have room for Alex Jens in here, so, we'll, deny that one, but I wanna let everybody know that anybody who doesn't make these selections, we're keeping the applications for consideration in the, tag groups that we are gonna discuss after this portion of the tags discussion.
Yeah, please join the meetings.
Yes, please join the meetings. So got that one, and then, Matthew Campbell, didn't, give us a particular seat he wanted to get into, but as he works as an architect, and I don't have a recommendation for a position that they could, fill because our seat is full in that slot already. And same as the, general public SME, so we would send these guys, denial letters, but keep them in mind for future openings.
Perfect. Craig, go ahead.
I thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, is this flying around just dusting your way too fast for me? I just wanted to confirm that we're abiding by the 15 position limit in all of our tags and we're not exceeding that as we do this.
Yes.
Correct. We're not creating any new positions in here. We're just filling the vacant ones.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, and do we want to vote on all these as a whole and we'll move on to the fire tag now?
Roger?
Yeah, I have a question about the general public SME on the IBC tag.
Okay.
Is there both a primary and a secondary right now?
Yes.
So we have Michael Barth and Leah Summer in those positions.
Okay.
Chair, may I just make a comment coming into this? This is somewhat unusual that we are doing it as a whole council. Normally the chair, in the past, the chairs have helped make these nominations. This year, remember, we brought it to the executive committee, but we didn't have quorum, so I just want to explain that to everyone in the public that if it does seem like it's going fast, it's because we normally don't do it at the whole council level, but that's okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Todd, do you want to make this motion to accept these 4 individuals?
Thank you. Yes, I move to approve these nominations as shown.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the fire code.
Okay, in the fire code, we have Matthew Campbell as well. He works as an architect and the seat for architects is full, so I don't have a recommendation for him. As far as the other 2, they're both for the general public SME, and that position is fully vacant. And I had a recommendation for Seth Henderson as prime because they came with a letter of recommendation from Snohomish. And then as secondary, I have Samir Mokashi as the alternate for that position.
Okay.
And we were out of contact on this one to have any input as I.
So I am the what am I, the alternate
Mhm.
for the committee? And while Samir may not have a written letter of recommendation, I would give him a verbal letter of recommendation, very, very knowledgeable in fire. So I would, as if you can go back to the other page, as what's the next column, the chair recommendation, I would recommend, I would actually recommend Samir as the primary and Seth Henderson as the alternate.
Okay. So we have an acting chair recommendation. I see 3 vacant seats on that particular tag. Building owner, property manager, general public SME that we just filled, and state enforcement.
Correct.
So I once again, I don't find a suitable position for our third applicant.
Yes, and Damon, I continue on the IBC as well to try to find certainly an affordable housing representative. That's a very hot topic and would really like to have affordable housing people on our tags. So continue to try to recruit, but I would make a motion that we approve Samir and Seth as general public SMEs for the fire tag.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. Todd.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. MVP or MPV, depending on which one you want to look at.
All right, I might have that labeled wrong, I guess, in there, huh? So we have 3 applicants. For Brian Holstein, he's in here. We didn't receive an application, so I don't even have contact information for him. I might have some stuff that we got back in from BIEW after this was all disseminated. But for the moment, he's not in consideration for a position. So we have Brad McCutcheon for the residential HVAC position. That seat is vacant. And then we have a home builder, which is also vacant for this tag. And I spoke to Ben Omura, and he was friendly to the recommendations I have here. And I will yield to Justin at the moment.
Okay, Justin.
Oh, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that Brad McCutcheon's one of our residential contractors that I reached out to. He'd be really good on this. He's a very very knowledgeable guy, and it'd be good to have him on this tag. So I didn't write him a letter of recommendation, but I would like to give a verbal recommendation for him.
Yeah, and I'll do the same for Ted Clifton. Ted's a home builder out of Whidbey Island. He also runs net zero energy plans. He's done nothing but net zero energy homes for the last 25 years. When I introduced Ted, I introduced him as the 2nd smartest building science person in Washington State. And when he introduces me, he says the same thing. So that's our ongoing rivalry. But Ted knows a heck of a lot about ventilation and indoor air quality. So I think he'd be a great help. Okay, Justin, you want to make a motion for those 2 recommendations?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve those 2 for the MVP tag.
Okay, that would be
Second.
Second. Okay, that's both Brad and Ted. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, got 2 more tag spots filled. That's fantastic.
And then that brings us to the Washington State Energy Code. We are currently have the Commercial Energy Code looking for population here. And let's see, they wanted to fill the manufacturer supplier slot which is filled, and I didn't identify Harshad as fitting the description for other seats within that group. And so I don't have a recommendation for him on that front, but I'd like to keep his application for the residential energy code tag.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
And so I guess on that one, we don't have any direction to move on that one, so that would kind of wrap us up for pending appointments going forward.
Okay. And I'll remind the council and especially the tag chairs and alternates that those vacant positions remain open. So, please feel free to solicit and see if we can get these tags full. So, okay. Moving on to the second part of item 10, residential and WUI code tags.
Let this computer catch up to me.
Damon, I have a request. I know that you wanted to get done by noon, but I could stand to have a break.
Hey, you know what? I appreciate you reminding me of that. Sometimes I forget. It's 12:05. Do you think 10 minutes is adequate, or should we do 15? 15?
15 would be good.
15 it is. Let's take a break and we'll reconvene at 12:20.
Okay, we're live back here in the room.
Okay, and looking at the list of names, it appears that we do still have a quorum. So, okay. Next item on the agenda is the residential and WUI codes tag.
Alrighty, so this is work that was on last month's agenda that we didn't get to. And so the documents that were posted online are just forwarding of what Stoyan had posted out there. And so I do not have much as far as background on why the stuff is on this page like this. I believe that Stoyan had been in contact with folks, and so I'm just gonna put up on the screen what we have there, and we'll open it for discussion at that point. So give me one moment. Meeting controls. All right.
Okay, let's go ahead and take these one at a time. Let's start with the residential and wildland urban interface tag. So are we holding the chair vacant for our soon-to-be appointed fire position?
I believe so. So I've got the, let's see here.
No,
This
that's for the
was
fire.
held vacant because we didn't have a new WABO representative yet on the council.
Ah,
Thank you.
gotcha. Okay.
There's that one, right?
And our WABO representative is, refresh my memory,
Angela Haupt.
Angela. I got her confused with Annette last week. I felt really silly. Do we want to appoint Angela since she's not here?
I mean, that might be the quickest, easiest, but it may not be the most fair.
Well, or is anyone else interested in the?
Is this a one tag? Are they meeting very soon? Is that why we need a chair, or is it a group two?
It's a group two.
Okay, so we might,
Be a chair
for
position
the
at the moment.
respect of having her agree to a nomination.
Yeah, I was saying that tongue in cheek, so.
Then
and it looks too that I just want to comment, it looks like we've got our 15, that the official wildlife position is a optional. So I think that should be fine.
sorry, guys.
Does anybody want to make any recommendations on the makeup of this particular tag? it certainly looks like it's pretty well represented. I'm not certain when DNR, if they have any new forecasts, is when their maps will be revised, and whether or not you know, this, well, certainly the IRC tag will meet, but the WUI tag may be on hold for a bit.
I've heard that that could be up to 2 years.
I've heard the same, yeah. You know, one thing, well, and I don't want to look at this strictly from the WUI perspective. We've got a framing masonry contractor, and certainly a lot of the IRC is directed at structure and therefore affects the framer. When you come at it from the WUI position, it's doing things on the exteriors, or perhaps a siding supplier or contractor would be more appropriate, but we might be able to get somebody there from either LP or Hardy or somebody in the manufacturer position. So I'm overall fine with the layout of this tag. Roger, comment?
I just am wondering procedurally, Damon, did we not already go through and approve these? Or did we, the positions, not the names?
We did the first 4, the group ones.
Okay.
Way back when. We have not, this is our first look at the group 2s.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Katie?
Yeah, given the kind of distribution of people who had comments on the previous code, do we have a requirement to kind of break this into east-west, or certain number of people on the east side and west side? Because we're really looking at quite a few landscapes here. I don't know, I'm just wondering if we have that in our policy.
I don't think that there's any
We do not.
requirement, but it would be probably a good consideration to bring in some folks from the east and west on at least the movie topics.
Yeah, Katie, that only exists in the council makeup, saying
Yeah.
that 6 need to be from the east. It's not codified in, you know, in regards to the tags. So
Be a kind of something to keep in mind as we're filling these seats.
yes, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, cool, thanks.
Roger? Todd, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Like the other tags, I would like to see the general public move to the red, and then advocate for a development code specialist, land use and zoning code. I think it's very appropriate in the residential code and in the WUI code to have that overlap.
Yeah, and this is a strange mix here to have, you know, WUI and IRC in the same, you know. Being somebody who's done both development and a tremendous amount of building, I don't know where. I'd like to see more emphasis on the IRC side, but I don't know that a developer is the correct person, unless they're both a developer and a builder.
I'm sorry, I said development code specialist. So land use.
Oh, you mean a code development specialist? You mean something like what Micah's role was for Seattle?
Oh, he's more building code, but I'm thinking more on the planning side. And now technically you could argue that could be somebody in cities and counties, but very specifically calling out the overlap with comprehensive plans as we go into comprehensive plans and so forth. That's more what I'm advocating for.
No, I understand. My concern is I think the IRC is probably one of our most critical codes along with the IBC. I mean, that's where our, you know, life safety stuff really resides. And I don't want to see this particular tag be more centered toward WUI when WUI is essentially on hold.
Well,
So
I'm
are
thinking
you
more that,
meaning like a growth management specialist?
no, specifically with our zoning reform in the state that's
Okay.
mandated, and with the legislation on up to 6 plexes in the IRC. I think we need somebody who also understands development, design, standards, guidelines, so forth. That could be the architect, but I think that's specifically somebody more leaning on the planning side.
I see value in that. We do have 2 fire services representatives. We got fire protection engineer, fire services. We could potentially replace one of those as well. I'll let the rest of the council speak. Jay, go ahead.
A couple comments on this, given Todd's interesting idea. Number one, even though we've called it general public across all the tags, it really hasn't been general public. And I think actually just a layperson would be inappropriate for a tag. It's really just been kind of a wild card slot for a subject matter expert. So that certainly would be something where plans, a city planner or plan review specialist could fit in. My other question for a potential slot is I'm unclear what codes consultant is, and is that something that might be appropriate for what Todd's suggestion? Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, mine's a little different. We're in Whitman County, we're going through our, countywide wildfire prevention plan here. And working a lot with, our local WUI here. But one of the things that the people that we've got really integral in our process is our emergency manager. And I'm not sure if the fire people, the fire marshal, it would be that same type of person or not. We've got both. So anyway, I'm just wondering if that might be an appropriate person to have on board, because they see things from a maybe a little bit wider perspective. But like I say, maybe they're the same as the fire. I don't know. What do people think?
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Jay. What I see a codes consultant as someone who, while an architect or a builder works on a few projects or perhaps many projects, but spends a lot of their time building or designing. A codes consultant often works across even more projects than a builder or an architect, and does general code compliance across all the codes often. So it is probably a helpful role to have, because they know the codes across a lot of projects. So it's been in my assumption, but I wanted to confirm it. This is the tag that would review the 2 legislative mandates regarding the single stair and the 6 per site. Is that correct, Dustin?
No, I believe that would be within the IBC realm.
Single access IBC, the other bill for sixplex is in IRC, and we need to resolve that across all tags, in my opinion, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just, from the idea of using a zoning, including a zoning slot, I was thinking if this is the tag that's really going to tackle those issues, having someone from the zoning side would be really helpful, because they're the people that understand how it all works.
Shell, the up to sixplex, the statute does specifically call out the IRC.
Yeah, yep. So it would be probably this tag, not an ad hoc.
Well, we can talk about that, but the bill says IRC, whether that's by reference to the other codes, so forth, that's a bigger discussion, but.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Roger?
Yeah, I see, again, given the fact that the WUI code, I don't think there's a whole lot of work over the next year or 2, because we kind of have been directed of what we can and should do. But on the residential code, I think there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done. So I was looking at who we could potentially take off, and I see land conservation specialist, wildlife biologist, and even landscape architect, which I see were vacant. And I'm not sure, given the work that this tag has coming up in the next couple of years, that if those 3 positions are critical.
Thank you. Dustin, have we have they published the significant changes for the IRC yet for 2024?
Well, I'd have to double check on that one, but it's not available in our library for us yet, but I'd have to double check.
Okay. Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Roger, I agree with what you said. Right now, with the postponement or the delay to the WUI, even without that, this is badly out of balance. Once you add a Department of Fish and Wildlife, Natural Resources, landscape, wildlife, land conservationists, I think it's pretty simple to reduce 3 places and put the emergency management. That makes sense, and the zoning and planning makes sense. But I think we're out of balance because the WUI is a big deal, and it was so bad last time. We got to make sure it doesn't happen this time. But a lot of the works can be in a residential code. So I think there's a solution here to get rid of things that the Roger suggested, and put the right people in there, especially since last time we didn't even have 3 of those positions, and maybe that's the reason it got messed up. I don't know, but I support what the direction Roger was going. I think makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And remember, any tag can have an unlimited number of participation leaders with the voting members. But I really only see 5 in here that are in regards to the IRC, and the IRC is a very, very important code. So, Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I agree that, the focus will be on the IRC in the long term. And even though we have our hands tied somewhat with the WUI code, it's still going to be a major issue of contention in the next 3 years. So I'm in favor of keeping some of the wildlife and landscape and natural resources people on the board there. So that is my concern. So and I would like to note that, there's no way in heck I'm going to ever become chair of this. So I don't think I'm appropriate or qualified to do that. So just keep that in mind. So I don't want to be that chair. So
Pete, you're too modest. So, okay. Katie, go ahead.
Thanks, Pete. Clarity is kindness, so that's good. I agree with what you said about having the conservation, wildlife, and landscape architect. Those were the folks that really chimed in when they had problems with the WUI. So I am going to guess that they might find some folks that want to join in. But this general public east is also vacant, and to some of the points that were made earlier, it does feel like as a general public seat for the council, having somebody with the zoning and planning experience would be a great substitute for that subject matter expertise, because really that's where we're kind of expanding into, and so having that expert would be really useful. I would suggest switching those, turning the general public to maybe red, the B team, so to speak.
Okay, Chell?
I was gonna agree with Katie and suggest that we make that change. This is really the tag where residential cost reductions and innovation is going to happen. So I think we need to make sure this is residential expertise heavy, and I think the zoning seat will help with that a bit. I think wildlife biologists, landscape architects can always weigh in, and I think they have plenty of seats. But really, this is where a lot of the innovation is happening in terms of cost reductions for housing in Washington. So critical that we have the voices in the room.
Thank you, Jill. I agree with that 100%. What I note that we don't have a structural engineer in this group, but I'm thinking toward IRC stuff. Roger, maybe you can help me. When something is stamped by a structural engineer, does it automatically default to the IBC even if it's a residential project?
I think that there is a fair amount of stuff on the residential side that can be stamped by an architect and doesn't require a structural engineer.
Okay.
So I think that that's fine. I think that, again, these are voting positions only, so that if people can certainly participate in the tags.
Right.
No.
Okay. Todd?
Yeah, and I think the fire engineer is the really critical engineering position on this one for both IRC and WUI.
Okay. Okay, is everybody in general happy with the way it's laid out right now?
We have some public hands up.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I let my window lapse here. Dave, go ahead.
Well, good afternoon. As a former chair of the WUI Code Advisory Group, it confused me that these two groups were put together because the WUI Code is building code intensive, fire code intensive, and residential code intensive, which is why it was previously set up separately. And I appreciate the discussion of the council today because I think you're validating that. Because what we're worried about, I was basically seeing that the residential tag was becoming a WUI tag to be able to address all those positions and weakening the tag for the residential requirements. These are two separate groups. There are different, there are some areas of commonality, but there is as much, if not more, commonality with the fire code than is the residential code. This also is going to affect commercial buildings. It doesn't just affect residential. It may be a significant amount of that. But it is going to be, I think the council did a disservice by combining these two tags together. And the discussion today, I think, is reinforcing that. I do also want to speak as a fire service representative, potential for the council that changing the title of number 4, and there's 2 number 4s on this chart, so I couldn't tell. I basically say fire services representative. I would like to have that. I think it'd be better off to word that as fire marshal / fire official. In general, in the past, the fire chiefs were the ones who appointed the positions for the fire service for the tags. And what has happened is that they have deferred that to the Fire Marshal Association. So if there's going to be a fire service representative, foremost, it should be a fire marshal or somebody that is a fire code official approved by the Fire Marshal Association. So I make those suggestions for that and ask that the council reconsider combining these two groups into a single tag, because there's going to be pull and tag, and you're not going to have people showing up for one that's going to show up for the other one. It is going to be a very challenging task for whoever is the chair of this tag. Thank you.
Yeah, Dave, can I ask, what are your thoughts on combining the IFC and the WUI?
In the past, the WUI was a sub-tag underneath the IFC, and that's something we could consider with that as well too. It worked before, and that's what I ended up being the chair for that sub-tag. So I think that would be better because and I know that we did some combining of tags last time. Had some discussions with a couple of people about that. We had the IRC and IBC tag and IRC and IFC, and we just need to make special tags for these things. We can't take tags and combining them together and try and get quorums. It just wasn't working very well. Right. But if it's under the fire tag, I think that would be fine as a subgroup. And because like the council has identified, there's not going to be a lot of action, but there is going to be something coming through for review. The tag may be having to take a look at some of the local proposals and things, making recommendations to the council as well.
Okay, thank you. And I think one of the reasons this was moved is because fire code is in group 1 and WUI is in group 2. And so, but I still think it might be a better fit. Chell, you had your hand up.
That's what I was going to say is we discussed this at length and we ended up with this direction. And I think it was because of what you said, Damon.
Yeah. Yeah. Craig, go ahead. Craig, you're up.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if it's time to make a motion, but I think what Dave said makes a lot of sense. What you said, I was a proponent of combining these things just out of efficiency, and clearly it is not more efficient. And if it's okay, I'd like to make a motion to reconstitute this to be residential with WUI separate. And I don't understand the makings of the sub tag or a separate tag, but I'd just like to reconstitute it so they're separate at this point. We can recombine WUI later. So that would be my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay, all right, Roger.
Yeah, I will second that. I am exactly the same way as Craig. I remember we were trying to, reduce the number of different tags, I think was I don't remember all of the motivations for us combining them, but it is obvious, and I agree with Dave as we go through this. There just are, I think that the residential code is going to be very, very important, and I'm afraid that, you know, there are people on this group that don't need to be involved in the residential necessarily. So that's why I second the motion, suggest we separate them into two different tags.
Okay, Jay?
Yeah, I like the motion too, given the work on single story or the 6-unit residential piece and other things. I think we can form a residential tag that's focused on that sort of work, and then a WUI tag specific towards the issues that we ran against last cycle. And then, Chair, I would also note that Ken Burlett's got his hand up for public comment on this. I'd like to hear from him too. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Once again, my screen buried the attendees. Ken, go ahead. You had your hand up for a while.
Thank you. So I was going to pretty much say ditto to everything that Dave Cocott said. And I'm glad that you're going in this direction and separating out these two. I mean, I understand that you're going to probably have to adjust your bylaws to affect this change based on how they're set up, but it's more appropriate to have two separate tags for this. I do like the mention of an emergency manager though on the wildland urban interface tag. I thought that was a good suggestion to add on, but that's why I think that you guys are going in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Katie?
Yeah, I was just gonna point out that if we're gonna do that, we'd probably have to change the bylaws, which we just spent so much time on. And I do feel like we've gone around and around about this one. So, you know, I hear what Dave and Ken are saying, and I'm conflicted about it, but yeah, I mean, another bylaws change.
We had a hand come up here in the room from Larry Andrews.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, we've been working with Newman Lake Fire Department job out there. And we've been listening to all the calls that come in. And I sure like Dave's idea. I mean, the fire people are there seeing what's happening, knows what's happening, and knows what needs to be done. And I think Dave's idea of having it under the fire tag is the right way to go. I mean, those guys are putting their lives on the line, the guys and the gals that are out there doing all this, and they're seeing firsthand experiences of hundreds and hundreds of calls that they go on. I mean, they go on calls when we're out there, they go on 5 or 6 calls all the time. I mean, every day. And in fact, somebody just lost their life, but they saved the buildings on the other side. And they're the ones that are there fighting it and understanding what the problem is. They need to be on the forefront of this. That's my opinion. I think Dave's idea is right on the mark. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Katie, your hand's still up?
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry, Pete?
Yeah, I was originally concerned about this combination of the residential and wild urban land interface. But you know, as Katie notes, it's not clear that we can change this efficiently at this time. So I'm inclined to go with what we have. So that's my opinion.
So I'm gonna make a recommendation, and then if somebody would like to make a motion, they think my idea is good. We've gone through numerous bylaw changes over the last 6 to 9 months. Some of them are still incomplete that were suggested by our previous managing director. So we're not done with that work. I think it's possible that the simplest thing would be to bifurcate the two tags, have a WUI tag and an IRC tag. They're both equally as important. And I think that we could bring that to the next meeting and do that, and even have suggested positions available. So the chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
Chair, I think you have a motion to that effect.
Oh, is that already, did you make that?
Yeah,
motion, Greg?
I did. I didn't use the word bifurcate though, but I use reconstitute. I'll go with either word. I think the motion's up and been seconded.
Okay, good. Well, great minds think alike. Okay. Any further discussion on separating the IRC and WUI tag?
I just wanted to mention that the changes to the bylaws, wouldn't be necessarily substantial looking at it. We just have the, technical advisory groups must be established. We could change that, and as long as we get, our 2/3 vote for making that change, we should be pretty easy to change that and, just add another tag in there. And then as I see it, we don't have the WUI maps to even work with, so the tag potentially might not even have work in this code cycle.
Okay, Roger?
Craig, is it okay if we just adjust the motion to direct the staff to come back to the next meeting in June with proposed tag positions filled out?
Yeah,
And
that would be,
and
that would,
proposed laws required?
yes, and to direct them to begin the bylaw change process.
Yeah,
Okay.
we brought both. Yeah. So we brought new bylaw language and proposed positions to vote on at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion, as I understand it, is to separate the IRC from the WUI tag, make them two independent tags, direct staff to create the correct bylaw language for us to vote on at the next meeting, as well as suggested positions for us to vote on as well. If I stated that correctly, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay,
I'm going to abstain from the vote for the record.
okay, thank you, Ty. Okay, so did we have 10 yays then? Or do we need a roll call? I know we're short a couple council members.
I said nay, but I'll accept the yay.
Okay, so I believe motion carries unless anybody wants to call for a division of the House. Okay, moving on then to the energy code residential. So this is what you're showing on the screen is different than what is on the website.
Really?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm in the wrong thing. Never mind. I didn't scroll far enough. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused as to why on this code tag we've got the electrical engineer as in red, as not needed. I mean, energy code, the way it's moving is all towards electrical, right? I mean, it's all and not having an electrical engineer on this tag seems like we're just really and truly kind of missing the main point of the whole code to begin with. And so I'm just suggesting hopefully that we can put that back into the active. It's in the commercial code, yes. And I think that there's every bit as much of a reason to have it in the residential code too, because they both use electricity for nothing, for no reason.
If I could comment on that, in 35 years of residential construction and hundreds of homes built, I've never used either in a residential situation, even a small multifamily. So it's just not somebody that on the residential side we ever reach out to. Not to say that I couldn't, but I don't know when I'd ever find that need.
But if even if it wasn't required for the design of the home, wouldn't that person perhaps have valuable input towards how the code is written?
Perhaps. Okay, I see your point. Okay. Chell?
I was going to say something similar to you, Damon, that a lot of, in fact, most residential that fits under the residential energy code doesn't involve an electrical engineer. That's not to say it couldn't, but I think it also means that a lot of electrical engineers don't work on this scale of project as well. Whereas almost every commercial building has an electrical engineer associated with it. So it's a less prevalent, there's probably a lot less of them that work on this scale of project in the residential code versus the commercial code.
I would agree. Todd?
I have a question, but if you'll entertain it, Chair, Larry has his hand up for public comment.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
I think you should remove the mechanical engineer and you should add the electrical engineer in place of him. And here's the reason why. I mean, we're building a lot of smaller homes, but we're building a lot of bigger homes. And we're getting electrical engineers involved because the state electrical code's requiring it. Okay, when you get a 10 or 20,000 square foot home, I mean, it's almost a commercial building, but it's still a home. And we gotta have all the calcs ran on something like that to do this, because we got PV on the roofs now. We got backup generators. We're having analyzations done on what the electrical load is gonna be. And with everything that we have going now, and we're going towards heat pumps, whether you like them or not, you've got loads here. And how is that gonna affect the residential area that this place is put in? And does that residential area have the load to bring these on? And we have to have electrical engineers here to do this. It's becoming very complex, a lot of calculations, so you don't have a mess up. And residentially, I mean, you got 6 plexes down and you're gonna probably have a whole bunch of PV on the top of the roof. And in our area, you're gonna have backup generators. I mean, our backup generators calls have more than quadrupled. And so you've gotta have people qualified to bring all this in. And so you're looking to the electrical engineer to give us those instructions. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd?
Oh, yeah, thank you. And that played out well. So Larry answered my question. And that was my question. While this is the residential energy code, to me, not having an electrical engineer in there tends to reinforce the status quo of prescriptive measures. And while that will always be predominant, the dominant, way we approach this, I would really like to see emphasis on more of the performance-based and as we get into battery systems, demand response, microgrids, all of the above, I think that's really critical to open this up more. So thank you.
Okay, Roger?
Yeah, I would ask somebody, staff member to confirm. I had thought actually that there were 18 members, not 17 for the energy code, and I may be mistaken. We went back and forth, but can we confirm that we have 17 or 18? We probably have to go back in the meeting minutes.
There are 18 on the commercial energy code. We're trying to get this down to 15.
I don't see it happen.
Wait,
Yeah.
I thought we were saying energy code was 18.
I thought we agreed on 18 or 17, whatever it was.
Yeah, I agree. For energy,
18.
we bumped it to 18.
I thought it was 18 for both, is what I had understood, but I may be wrong.
It's up to 18.
There's a hand up in the audience too.
Okay, let's get Ben and Shell, and then Greg, I'll call on you next.
Thanks, Chair. I guess just to respond to the comment regarding removing mechanical engineer, I would disagree with that. I think it's going to be important to have that representation on the tag as the systems get more and more complicated. It's important to have someone with that expertise in the tag as a voting member to help guide and delve into some of those deeper issues that are likely going to be coming up. I would also support having an electrical engineer in there. I'll note that for the 2021 code cycle, that there was a spot on the residential energy code tag, but it was vacant. So that spot was provided for in the previous code cycle. Thank you.
Okay. Greg Johnson, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a couple of things as electrical engineer that a lot of times people miss. So as you add solar, there's a limit to the amount of solar you can add to a service, because essentially you have two sources. You have the utility source and then you have the solar source, and that creates the problem where you could overload the panel. So, I mean, as we push to add more solar, that's great, but you just got to consider, well, maybe you have to upsize a panel if you hit certain limits. Also, when we're adding battery storage, California is adding battery storage as part of solar. They're requiring it. And that's maybe something we should look at and consider, because where solar generates its power is not during the time of day that it's actually needed. So maybe we should take a look at what California is doing. And then there's other things about EV charging. Right now, we're having outlets be put in, but I mean, EV chargers really haven't been coming online that much. But is the EV charging going to occur at the same time and overload the panel? Because that's a big load. It's like a range. So there's a lot of things that we should probably consider. And if you axe out the electrical engineer, you won't get all that info.
Okay, thank you. Katie?
Yeah, I was gonna see what Chell thought of this. Since you're an architect, could we, and you're sitting on the chair, or as the chair, could we take the architect spot off of this one and add the electrical engineer? Is that possible, or is that not, like, is that too much to put on you?
If that's, so as the chair, I am not allowed to weigh in on pro or con on any motion, or else the chairmanship is lost for that discussion. And I could be replaced as chair by someone who represents mechanical or something else. So I think it would be poor form to remove one slot simply because the chair is that slot. As a chair, I have responsibilities well beyond advocating for the architectural viewpoint of things. I have other comments, but I'll wait my turn for those.
Todd?
Oh, mine was simple. I just wanted to clarify that I support Ben's position of both the mechanical and electrical. So thanks.
Okay, Jill?
Yeah, I think we absolutely need to keep mechanical on here. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from mechanical in the past, because we are moving towards heat pumps or and gas appliances as well. So having that actual expertise is important. We have a solar battery slot on the tag already. So to Greg's question, the solar slot also now says energy storage installer. So we're covering that, and that person would probably have some expertise on whether the solar would overload the grid or the local thing. That's the reason why they're on the tag, as well as the battery storage, energy storage installer. My suggestions for this overall tag was, I think 14 energy modeler should just be energy modeler and not have cost estimator in there, because I think what the tag has relied on in the past is an energy modeler who is part of the tag to provide feedback on the proposals, and the tag has agreed as a whole to have that energy modeler provide feedback on proposals, so we know if they're a half credit or a full credit or 2 credits. And we've agreed usually in the past on, something like 600 kWh being worth a half credit in the medium home. So at least, so we don't have to debate about how much something is worth. We actually have them to run the models based on standard typologies and do that. So I would say let's strike cost estimator from energy modeler. It hasn't been combined in the past, and I don't think we should start combining it now. I'm also, I think home builder slash affordable housing representative, for that one, I would rather have it just be home builder. I think the home builder provides great information. And if we get someone who represents affordable housing, they might not have that direct information on home building. So my hope for the 18th slot would be to separate home builder and affordable housing representative, rather than add electrical or illumination engineer. So those are my my main bigger comments on these.
Can I ask why number 5 is the only one not highlighted?
The highlighting is slots that are also on the commercial energy code tag.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Tom?
Well, with all due respect, Shell, I was actually just gonna make a motion that we add the electrical engineer as the 18th slot.
Okay. Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like what Chell is saying by getting rid of the affordable housing representative. I would also suggest we could get rid of the general public SME. We've got enough of that going on in here. And, even though I disagree with the mechanical and electrical engineers in residential, I'm willing to concede that and put an NEP contractor in there for the 18th slot.
Okay. Todd?
Is the energy modeler, or who is not advocating, but who is the expert in integrated design and related to energy efficiency? I'm not seeing that. Is that assumed that is captured with these specific, electrical engineers, so forth? Because I don't know that is the same thing as a integrated design expert.
Well, as a HERS rater and an energy modeler for the last 15 years, energy modeling is something quite different.
Yeah, you know what I'm asking though? I just don't see that piece in here.
But no, I guess I don't follow you.
Okay. I don't see the integrated design in terms of energy efficiency and passive design and so forth. Now, maybe we're claiming or assuming that's an architect, but I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Typical HERS raters or energy modelers, obviously Dave Balon and Henry Odom have fulfilled that role in the past. PNNL has got fantastic resources on that front. So yeah, I see John Lang has his hand up, and I don't know how long it's been up, so I'm going to go ahead and call on John really quick.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in real quick as an electrical administrator of a solar company for a couple decades here on the load calcs on the residential level. It's pretty straightforward. It is really important, but it's pretty straightforward for someone who's experienced, and it's all in the NEC. We've got those sections of the code are pretty well covered. I'm not advocating for eliminating an electrical engineering position or anything. I'm just wanted to chime in there.
That's good information. Thank you. Roger?
Yeah, two things. Number one, I support number 18 being the electrical engineer. I'm not sure that we need to have elimination necessarily, but I would say electrical engineer. And on commenting on or responding to Shell's comment about an affordable housing representative, I've been trying to recruit an affordable housing representative onto the IBC tag, and I have not been able to find anybody. So while it may seem like a good position to have, so far I've not been able to find anybody that would help us out and contribute. So
Jay?
I concur with Roger and Shell's comments on affordable housing representative. I would suggest moving it down into the bullpen and say, if we were able to find somebody like that, that's what the SME slot number 11's for. But because a lot of the public comment that we've heard on the energy code, especially related to residential, is what about the trade-offs on what we're doing for housing affordability, both from the initial investment of what we're doing for the cost, but also the benefit for keeping a home affordable by having predictable or reduced energy costs over the lifetime of the home. So I do think it's an important voice, but I agree with Chell that we need the home builder specifically and would move affordable housing representative to the red. It would be my suggestion. Thanks.
Okay, Tom?
I was wondering if the group's ready for a motion?
Yes, I would love to entertain a motion.
Okay. I move that we add number 18 as the electrical engineer. We move the affordable housing representative to the bullpen. We take the cost estimator off of item number 14. And pass it as is, as it then stands.
Okay, I'm gonna let,
I'll second that.
okay. So is it the three changes as appearing on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, Craig?
I was wondering if I can make a friendly amendment, Tom, to eliminate the general public and put a plumbing electrical contractor in slot number 11.
I
think you got that in slot 12 right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then I disregard that friendly amendment. I want to consider it an unfriendly amendment.
But it's all good.
Who was our second?
Who was the second?
I was. Jay.
Jay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as appeared on the screen?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That moves us into number 11, other business.
Larry Andrews has his hand up.
Okay.
Right. I said something that does concur in to have you post about. It became evident to me when the Chronicle paper printed out what the cost of living for the elderly is here. And the energy code is out of hand on the costs. And the elderly can't afford it. And when the energy code goes the way it is, I know you were mandated, but in those rules, it says that when the costs start getting up there like it is, you need to inform the legislature of what's happening. And you're pricing us out where we can't afford it. We can't afford what's going on anymore. And one of the prime examples is we're 34 trillion in debt, 198 taxpayers million. So that means each one of us taxpayers owes $168,000 per taxpayer. And we've got to start cutting the costs. I mean, we have a lot of money coming in, but we're spending it faster than what we can make it. And we need to do a moratorium on these energy codes. And the legislature needs to know about this and start letting us catch up to where we are. The governor even said when Stowen left that our buildings are energy efficient now because of Stowen. Okay, and he printed that. And we need to listen to that. We're bankrupting us. And we're getting to the point that you're going to put more people out on the street that can't afford this stuff. And we need a breath of air. And the only way to do it is like we've done in the past. On the energy code, we've passed a few years. And let it settle down and see where we're at. And let the industry deal with what we've got. It really needs to happen. We don't have the money to keep going on the way we are. We don't have the money to run the city here anymore. The fire departments, they're trying to pass. They don't get their levies passed. The school districts can't get their levies passed because the people don't have the money to give you anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Krista?
As I noted previously, we are starting the process of going through the errata for the commercial energy code. And so I have been in the process of developing the expedited rulemaking for that. And I have a list of all of the changes that will be going into that if you'd like to go through it. These are all typographical errors, errors in numbering, references that are bad, places where, you know, a single word has been left out of a sentence. There's a couple of duplications where the same section is repeated twice, but they're all fairly simple editorial corrections like that.
Okay. Are you asking for some sort of action by the council?
So if the council would like to go ahead and make a motion to do the expedited rule on that, we can get that filed. I'm just waiting for it to come back from OTS. And then, of course, if there are any comments that come in on that, it would kick it into regular rulemaking, but these are all pretty straightforward corrections.
I would like, at least personally, and I would assume that the rest of the council would love an opportunity to review this list. In addition to the water heater issue that I brought forward today, I've got a couple more that I found. There's an error in what the WAC says and what our second edition on the website says for 406.2, 1.2, they don't match.
That's in here, I think.
You have that one?
Yeah.
It had to do with the R60 advanced, was on one and not on the other.
Are you talking residential energy code or?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking commercial.
This is just commercial.
Okay.
Residential already had the first round of expedited that went through with the EPCA changes.
Yep.
So I haven't gone through, there's only a couple of them so far up on the residential. So I haven't started on that one again.
Okay. I apologize. I was thinking residential here. And I'll be sure to get the other two that I have off to you as quickly as I can. Looks like we have some comments on this topic, I assume. Ken, is this related to the commercial errata? Ken Brulette?
Sorry, I was waiting to be unmet. No, it's not on this. It's on another item.
Okay, I'll pull. Anybody got comments on the commercial errata? Tom?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I'm just looking at what's right in front. Is non-display, is that one word or should that be hyphenated since we're doing this?
That's the way the model code has it.
Okay.
As one word.
Okay.
Okay. I see 3 more hands up. I don't know if it's related to this or not. Dustin, yours is up.
Mine came up. I don't know if I have preferential treatment because I'm a host of the meeting, but Todd had me.
No, I backed down, so you could, if you're talking about this.
No, I'm not talking about this one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Shell, do you have a comment on this?
I was gonna make a motion to do as Krista suggested.
To
I will,
move- Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to go into expedited rulemaking, I think is what Krista said, for this list of editorial clerical issues within the commercial energy code.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to push this forward for expedited rulemaking. Krista, does that solve what you're trying to accomplish?
If the motion passes, yes.
Okay. Okay, any comments on moving this document forward?
I'd just like to say thank you. This is incredible work, and I'm just really grateful that you guys do it for us and for everybody.
Yeah, I would echo the same comments. Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Krista, thank you for the yeoman's work here. Any other new business? Ken, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, since we're speaking of CR, the 103 process, the one that you, and I'm sorry I wasn't on earlier, the one that you approved earlier regarding the 51-54A 904 alternative, this was discussed at the tag, because it was brought up that what is going to be in effect now until January. There's an editorial problem with our existing 904.111 and 904.1.1.2 and 904.1.1.3 that we had discussed that may either get cleaned up with this emergency rule, or if you were going to do the same thing what you just did with the energy code and do another CR 103, but you could clean that up right now by deleting 4 words in those 2 sections. And I didn't know if Dustin, if you remember that we talked about this, of taking off the on kitchen suppression systems on those 2 items and just having a period at the end of that, because that's how it was originally proposed. I don't know if you can bring that up or not, the CR 102. Or CR 103, I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna pull up the OTS document on that one.
Well, no, I really think that if you're going to make an emergency rule and you're showing the strike through of the date, you could do the same thing on this emergency rule.
Well, yes, but I'll have to send this back to OTS to do that change. So if I make the change, it'd probably take maybe a day for them to turn that over for me. And I'm not gonna promise anything on their part, but they are pretty responsive with small changes like this. And so you're proposing for kitchen.
So under 904, and I wish, can you pull up the CR 103 that you guys just
yes, I can
document that everybody should have in front of them, but I would just like them to.
Justin, we're not seeing that screen.
Oh, apologies. Sorry. Where the heck is my meeting controls? Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, so on the 904.1.1.2, it should be a period after word maintenance, and the on kitchen suppression system should be struck. And the same thing should happen in the 904.1.1.3, should be a period after maintenance and on kitchen suppression system struck. The kitchen suppression system is in the 904.1.1.1. And that was just an editorial mistake when it first got adopted years ago. And its language just doesn't make any sense. We struck it in Seattle to clean it up, but it never got cleaned up at the state level.
Do the changes I made look like what you're describing, correct?
Exactly. So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So Justin, how are we gonna go about submitting this?
So I would like a motion to make this change. And then it'll just take a quick little bit to send this back to OTS. And once it comes back, the CR 103 can probably be filed mid next week.
I make a motion to make the change as presented.
Second.
The motion and a second, any discussion? Todd, is your hand on this? Todd, were you wanting to comment on this? Okay.
That's something.
Krista, go ahead.
I had one other issue, on the energy code that was brought up that would require more than just an expedited rule. Let me see if I can share this.
So should we complete the action on the motion on the table?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Okay. Seeing no hands on the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ken. Okay, go ahead, Krista.
I apologize, I jumped the gun on that. We got some comments that there are some significant problems with the calculation for the combination heat pump, other heat source calculations, and as it stands, you end up with a negative number every time. And so it was suggested that we might want to go into rulemaking, or if the council deems this to be editorial to fix the equation, we could do that too. But Chell, if you want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, so we had a perfectly good equation that looked kind of complicated, and then Shane Nillis in the tag process suggested a change to the equation to make it simpler, and the tag accepted that. And then my 8th grade math teacher would not be proud. I made it even simpler, but I reversed the B and the C on that when I brought that, and I made that change between the MVE committee and the council when the council reviewed it. So it should be C minus B, and I did a whole spreadsheet on this, and I had the math right in the spreadsheet, but somehow when I translated into the suggestion that I made, it was B minus C instead of C minus B. I think I went alphabetical instead of like the way that I had done the math in the spreadsheet. So that's the biggest one, is it shouldn't be increased. It should be we're allowing, I'll give you the context for the whole thing. So when you take the fossil fuel path, you have to do more energy efficiency measures to make up for your lack of efficiency of your gas appliances or your fossil fuel appliances. But to the extent that your fossil fuel appliances comply with exceptions, you should get credit for that. So if it says you need an extra 50 credits, but you have fossil fuel appliances that comply with the exceptions in the base code, then instead of getting 50 credits, you might only get 20 credits. You might only need to get 20 additional credits. So this equation decreases the number of additional credits you need based on exceptions in the base code. So I reversed the B and the C, and then we also wanted to, where it says A equals, we wanted to make it clear that it's about service water heating credits. And then under C, what's on the screen, we wanted to make sure that this included exceptions for fossil fuel or electric resistance in the base code. Is that at all clear? I could spend more time explaining it, but I don't want to over explain. The base code says use a heat pump, but there's like 15 or 17 exceptions to when you don't have to use a heat pump. When you use the fossil fuel path, which this is under, you get to decrease the additional number of credits you need by anything that complies with any of the exceptions under the heat pump path. So this section is clarifying how many credits you get to reduce from the additional credits needed for the fossil fuel path. So this overall makes it clearer, but also easier to comply with the fossil fuel path because it includes both electric resistance and fossil fuel in the C, cleans up the math error that I made. That's what it does. So I can answer any questions about that.
Roger?
No, I'm just going to say it makes complete sense to me, and the C minus B is almost intuitive, and I think it's very obviously just a clerical change. I mean, total minus what's installed is very obvious that that's what the formula is trying to achieve. And I think it also makes complete sense that fossil fuel, if you have some fossil fuel and some electric resistance, you should get whatever credit you have already taken, right? So I think that these are clerical and makes complete sense to me.
Dustin, before I call on you, Kevin's got his hand up. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was curious with the redefinition of C that includes electric resistance, since this is the fossil fuel path, how does an electric resistance capacity figure into that?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what this math equation right here is the total number of credits you need, additional number of credits you could need to get under C406 within the fossil fuel path. So what the intent of this math is to do is to say, well, if you already met any of the exceptions for the heat pump requirement, you would get credit under the fossil fuel path for meeting any of those exceptions. And those exceptions include certain fossil fuel fired things and certain electric resistance things. So this makes it easier to comply under the fossil fuel path because you can, and in my understanding, that was the intent of this section, was to take the exceptions under the heat pump path and have them as decreased credit requirements under the fossil fuel path. But you're right, it does, it actually makes it easier to comply under the fossil fuel path when you include or electric resistance. So there is a small, but I'm sure in some typologies, noticeable path. And the fossil fuel path doesn't say you need to use fossil fuels. It's just if you want to use fossil fuels for a certain percentage of your project, you can use a fossil fuel path. And then this math says, well, if you're only using fossil fuels for this percentage of the project, then you don't need to get all the credits. It's not like you install like one little fossil fuel thing and all of a sudden you need to get all 50 credits. It's like if you install a little fossil fuel thing and it's kind of minor, then you get some fraction of the 50 additional credits. And I'm just making up those numbers right now.
Kevin, does that answer your question?
Sort of. I I just, sorry, I'm just a little baffled that I'm trying to think of an example to make this tangible. We're looking at space heating here. So let's say, for example, you had a multifamily housing building where all of the units had electric resistance heat. That's exceptions, that falls into the exceptions. And then maybe, I don't know, some fossil fuels for the lobby. And let's say the ratio is 5 to 95, the fossil fuel, and therefore it would be have to follow the path because that's the break point is 5%. I guess that makes sense because you'd have 95% of your points taken away by the electric resistance in the exceptions. I guess I see how that lines up. I'm puzzled by this equation, I guess. Taking a look at it again, I know I was in the tag, I saw this, but just seeing this again, I'm like, how does this add up? So I'll take that offline. Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you. Ben.
Yeah, I think Kevin kind of walked through it, but I was going to provide some maybe context on it. But yeah, like Kevin kind of talked about, like you could have the majority of your space heating be gas-based, and then you'd still have some electric resistance applied throughout the building somewhere with, I don't know, some unit heaters, electric resistance unit heaters or something like that. That would all add into the total that you would use for the C value. And then I think maybe one thing that might help clarify as well is the difference between C and D would be that D would incorporate all sources of heating, including heat pumps in that.
Okay, thank you. Dustin.
I just have my hand up, placeholder for Larry here in the room.
Gotcha, thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
He is both equations and numbers put into both equations and see what the fallout is. But one of my biggest questions here is, if you have electric resistance versus 95% gas efficiency, then the gas efficiency has a much lower carbon footprint than the straight electric. And so you shouldn't be treating those as equals. The 95% efficiency should be getting better credits than the straight electric, because the straight electric is putting out more carbon. And so I'd like to see these two equations put side by side and then analyze them a little bit before we make a decision on this stuff. Thank you.
Shell?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to switch B and C in this equation, just to make it clear to everybody who's following the code that that's the intent. If you don't do the strikeouts in B and the addition in C, it makes the fossil fuel path more difficult to comply with, or you need more credits under those. If that's what the council wants to do, then I'm fine with that. But I think the critical thing is to switch B and C, so it's clear to everybody that's the intent.
Greg, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've tried to digest this enough. If we can't reach some kind of agreement right away, I would make a motion that we have it go offline and come back and revisit it next time. But I don't think there's any value in continuing to consume this entire council on what seems to be causing some confusion. Shell, do you feel we're clear? If we're clear, then I'll make a motion to accept this and move on.
I mean, I'll respond, which is, I think we need to change the B and C thing soon, very soon, because it's confusing the way it's written. And I mean, that was my error. I think we should just fix that. And I don't know, Krista, if your hope was to get this in the same batch as the clerical errors, or are they totally separate subjects in the way you're thinking of them?
I was kind of intending to file them as two separate documents, whether they're both expedited or one's expedited and one follows regular rulemaking. But just because of all the discussion that I figured this one would engender, it didn't want to put all the others off because this one might be harder to understand.
No, I guess I would, thank you, Krista. I would say that we need to fix the BNC as soon as we can. I think most people would come to the same conclusion, whether they're in the way they are now or switched. But I think it would just be clear to everybody. Everybody's going to scratch their head a bit. And it would be a lot clearer if we just did expedited rulemaking to switch BNC. That would be my preference today. And if we want to come back and discuss striking the word fossil fuel from B and adding or electric resistance to C, then we can have a long and robust discussion on that. But I think seeing both this equation and the equation just below this, switching B and C would be is important, and there's an immediacy to it as well.
Okay, Roger?
Yeah, I make a motion that we modify B and C as shown on the screen for both equations. And we wait on making the other edits, even though they make a lot of sense to me, but there obviously is some question or concern. So let's make the changes. My motion is to make the changes to the two equations, switching B and C. And that is very clearly editorial. It shouldn't be controversial at all. I mean, total minus installed. It's very obvious that that's the intent. So that's my motion.
I second that. Thank you, Roger.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Cool. Krista, does that give you what you need to do or needed from us to go forward? I'll take that as a yes. Okay.
Dance.
We are still under other business. I just want to make a comment. It came down, the screen came down before I was able to, but looking at the makeup of the residential energy code tag that we just put together, and once again, we have really one user, just one home builder out of 18 positions. And I'm honestly concerned about the cost of housing. NHB released a report last week that the national median home price is now at $498, but in Washington State is $749. This is for new home. So the median new home price is $749. And it gets us down to 7% of households that can afford a new home at that median home price. So I just hope that we keep that in the back of our minds as we go forward and make changes to these model codes. Is there any other new business, or rather other business? Roger, go ahead.
Mine is a question that I'm hoping Dustin can answer for me. The group one, the schedule for the group one, when I look on our website, doesn't show, and now I can't read it because I have it on my small screen, doesn't show submittals of proposed amendments until after the June meeting. Is that correct?
That is, so I was gonna bring that up in the staff report, but since we're talking about it now, we pushed off the topic for approving of the reports at this meeting in the original schedule, because the work wasn't complete in the tags. And so we're hoping to have that complete by the June meeting, and at that point, we would open up the proposal period once the reports are approved.
Can I ask, is it vitally important that the reports are approved prior to starting to submit? And the answer may be yes, but I'm aware of some proposed amendments that are pretty well thought out and pretty, not necessarily tied to the work that the tags are doing right now, but so I guess I'm curious if that's critical that we wait.
As far as it being critical and vital, probably not. The only reason I moved it that way was because we shifted and I was anticipating shifting the whole process by 1 month.
If I can chime in on that, part of the reason is so that we know what the base code will be for code change proposals going forward, which existing state amendments will be continued and which ones will be going away. It's not real important, but it's helpful information for those drafting code change proposals.
So a question for that, Kristen and Dustin. The way we're doing it this round, now that we edit code directly, will that be published though? We can't do that, can we?
We publish what?
The whole code and all the base code? Or will it just be the matrices like we have in the past?
It'll just be the matrices.
So people will have to do a lot of work to really understand. I mean, this is how we did in the past, I know, but I mean, they're not gonna see the actual code language.
In the report that we're putting forward for approval by the council, the code language will be included. It just won't be in line with the rest of the code. So the sections that are relevant to the amendments will be included in line in the tables that you guys have been seeing at the meetings. So the staff's working on getting all that inserted into these reports.
So Chris, is that what you mean? You want people to see that before the proposal window opens?
Again, it's more associated with the existing amendments and which existing amendments will be there or won't be there, so that when people are crafting their code change proposals, they're using the correct version, whether it be the model code that they're amending or an existing state amendment within that amendment. Yeah.
So it may not be the most critical thing, but I think what Chris is saying is that it is helpful when drafting proposed language if the amendments change or are recommended to change, that drafters have that available.
Okay, that answered my question.
Todd?
I was gonna talk, Dustin, just briefly on the ad hoc for the single exit. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Senate Bill 5491, 2023, that's the single exit mandate that we've been talking about. In that, it's very specific that, the Building Code Council shall convene a technical advisory group, but the purpose is to amend the International Building Code and to adopt any amendments by 2024. But in that, we all know, and there's other language that talks about, fire response time, water supply, and then just, ensure public health, safety, and general welfare. So I think we all know that also is going to draw on the IFC and other codes. So what we've been doing in the background, Dustin Stoyan and I, we started laying the groundwork a few months ago. Dustin's going to speak more about the process, but what I've also been doing is trying to reach out to the key members of whether the tags or at the model code level, what's going on a different proposal, but still trying to address that. And in that, I raised it to the IBC tag just yesterday on the concept and their input on an ad hoc committee, so that we not only have maximum transparency, but we also really can tune this technical advisory group to subject matter experts all focused on that. Ultimately, like the tsunami tag that went into chapter 16, that had to pass through the IBC. I fully anticipate that whatever an ad hoc tag comes up with is going to pass through the IFC, the IBC, and any other, code that's relevant. So just want to put it out there that we're having those discussions, really interested in input. I don't know when we're proposing that the council would take action to potentially propose that, or whether it can simply be started with an IBC or IFC ad hoc, but I'll leave it to Dustin to comment.
So it's my intention to bring this to the council in next month's meeting as part of our staff report that I had prepared for today. We have a new staff member who we're going to be coordinating with to help tackle some of these legislative goals for us. And so they just started last week, and I'm still getting everybody on an even keel before we really embark on that one. So there's some background work happening right now, and I'd like to formalize the approach at next month's meeting.
And I'll just conclude that, you know, people are eager to get going, and I think we're ready, and it may not have to go through the external proposal process, but there are groups that are already working on some baseline proposals.
Yeah, and I'd like to touch base on the other legislative things. I want to bring all three of those to the meeting next month as well. So we've got some interest on the embodied carbon study that we're needing to do. So we're trying to coordinate with Oregon, and I've got some input from Stoyan from California on some of that as well. And so just look forward over the next month to hear some more communication from me about that for everybody who is interested in the different legislative tasks we have going on. I'm really just trying to get organized on it at this point now. And so just trying to get back on my front foot on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other business? I think we've kind of morphed into staff reports. If you guys want to take the mic and conclude here.
I had one more other business, and it's not hyper important, but since we did create a new tag here today, did we want to appoint a chair at this meeting or hold off until the next meeting?
How soon does that tag need to meet?
It's not critical. It's for the WUI tag, and you know, we don't have the map on it, and so it can easily be held off to next meeting. I was just thought it might be prudent to put it in everybody's ear at this point.
Yeah, I think since we're down to 10 minutes left, let's go ahead and just pump that
Okay.
in. So
so real quick on the staff report, first off, I mentioned we have a new staff member. His name is Josh Brown, and I want to welcome him to SBCC staff and formally introduce him to the council. He's online. If you wouldn't mind hopping on and just giving a quick hello, and then we will move on from there. But Josh, I'll turn it over to you real quick.
Good afternoon, Chair and council members. My name is Josh Brown, and I just started with the State Building Code Council on Monday. So I come from Department of Enterprise Services, where I did a lot of behind the scenes legislative work. So I have a good sense on legislative process and how to read bills and all that fun stuff. So happy to be here and looking forward to helping out as much as I can when and where needed.
welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Next, we touched on the adoption schedule and it has been updated. So there is a new schedule online. So there's, if you go to our 2024 code cycle adoption tab and click on the schedule there, we've got a new schedule posted, and the changes made inside of there are highlighted. The cells are highlighted, so there's not a significant change. And as far as shifting the entire process 1 month, as we drafted that, I didn't think that we needed to shift the end of that process. We just kind of shifted the proposal period 1 month down, and so that's the update on the adoption schedule. So we have it up there for those who might want to look at it. Just a quick update on the petition from last meeting. We have the CR 101 filed on that one. And Krista, do you want to maybe give a little bit more deeper update on that one?
Right, we've got the CR 101 filed, and the earliest we can file a CR 102 will be, I think, the first week of July. So in the meanwhile, the council will need to determine what language they want to move forward to the public hearings, be that the language that was originally proposed, the language that is currently adopted, or some sort of an option scenario. So that will also be on the agenda for next month's meeting as we get a longer and longer meeting set up for that.
Okay.
And then last, for my quick update for everybody, so we mentioned new staff, Josh, but we also have an opening available for another code specialist. And so I just want to make all the council members aware that we have the position out there. And if you guys are aware of anybody who you think might be interested in it, I would ask that you guys funnel them our way and we can potentially get that position filled. If we can get fully staffed, it'll definitely be a little bit of a pressure release for staff as far as the overall work burden for everybody in there. And so hopefully that'll smooth out the reports creation. Of course, if we get them on right now, there'll probably be some upswing on that, but any way we can spread it out amongst our within the staff is going to be beneficial for us. So we got a new code specialist position listed. It went live, I believe, Wednesday, and it's open for 2 months, and we might start interviewing after a month if we get some applicants in there. And so that concludes my very brief staff update as far as what's going on right now. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to entertain them at the moment.
You're doing a fine job. You thought those shoes were too big to fill. I think you're doing great.
Sentiment, you know, when we shifted the code cycle, honestly, it felt like my first failure, but I think it's just a wrinkle in the blanket and we're gonna iron it out. And, you know, one of my goals is to not be reactionary in our cycle and processes and try to get into a position where we are anticipating some of these changes and we are not acting last minute on a lot of things. So I'm hoping that I'm meeting some of those measures already, and I only hope to improve it some more. So I appreciate everybody having a little bit of patience as I get up to speed. And you know, I'm looking forward to working with this council and not plan on going anywhere.
Great. Okay. Does that conclude your report?
Sure.
Well, look at that. We're 4 minutes early. So didn't make my noon bet, but we got done on time. Thank you, everybody, once again, and thank you for working to get the meeting concluded in the allotted time. And we will resume again in June. So enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
Be safe, everybody.
Everybody, Mr. Chair.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks all.